So when you take the
News to me.
commission and you strip it of the members that were there, that there's no members there to give you any insight because we're all gone.
Well,
You know, we didn't do that. We didn't.
now I would tell you that Catherine has been on there since day one.
She has, but Catherine wasn't part of the county board. So it's really hard for her to function in a county level when she's not working with, we work with the directors all the time, you know? So it's easy for me to call and check things out. For her, it's harder. They don't recognize her name. There's probably not a director that even knows her.
Recording in progress.
They know all of us because it's on a monthly basis.
And
So now,
you
now
and
we're
Tom
unmuted on
and
the,
Mike
this one
are,
again.
and that I can, who are these people? What do they do?
Okay.
And
I
have
would like
had-
to remind everyone that we are live.
Okay.
So, reminding everyone, so we do need to follow the 9 o'clock start time and the agenda, please.
Let's just wait a couple minutes to see if Karen shows up. It's actually only 8:58,
Correct.
so you can't start till 9.
Sorry, I forgot to call you yesterday.
Oh, that's all right.
No, it's not. I feel so bad. It was 7:30 and I said, well, now it's way too late. So I'm very sorry. Hi, Kay. How are you doing?
Just, I'm one giant confused person.
Okay, then.
Did you make me a co-host? That way, if I just need to manage anything from here, I'm able. Especially if there's sound
Oh,
issues.
you
I
know,
can
if you don't
do.
have time to, we ain't here either.
You're okay with that? Camera, you want me to tip it up a little bit?
Tip it up a little.
Actually, you should be able to. In the parking lot because no one was parked out front. I was the first car.
No, mine's out here.
Are you that way or this way?
That way. I have the white truck.
I'm
so
a-
I've got
Oh, okay.
I'm the blue Volvo.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay, good.
There we go.
Yeah, we'll do that. And then
It's gonna be a long meeting today, you want
Oh.
Bon appetit, everybody. I ain't sharing with you
I
either.
don't know why you're not
That
picking
one.
up instead of him.
It's gonna go into the Zoom 1 o'clock easily.
You don't wanna
This
cry.
committee likes to talk.
That's not good.
Come sit over here, Doug.
I'm taking my kids to see
Okay.
the Elvis impersonator today in Luna.
Okay.
They're doing the Out to Lunch series. So,
That's a good series in there.
Yeah.
Wednesday evenings. What,
Yes.
every
I will
other
get your name
Wednesday
tag for you.
evening. They've
Yeah.
got good bands playing.
I know, I feel kind of
Boogie
bad.
and Yo-Yos are gonna be there
Yes.
in August.
Yeah.
Chris, did you make it to the state fair?
no.
And then tonight in the
No.
Nasha, they
Dunn
have the
County?
Twisted Piston,
No,
the car
I
show, so we're gonna go to that too.
I've
They love.
done enough
cars.
fairs.
Do they?
I
Oh,
don't ever
yes,
need to really
yes.
go to one again.
I took them to a car show at Artie and Ed's, the root beer float place, in Oshkosh here, and they had the kid car. Yes, and they were obsessed.
We need Doug.
So,
Bless you.
yeah, and then we watched the TV show, and we're like, this guy's
That's how you
cool.
know who you are.
And
And I
Joe,
want you to say
I'm-
you-
I'm seeing the,
12,
It's only
10,
here.
8, and 7.
for whatever
So
reason,
they're,
that this one is.
So you
Okay.
did
Now,
our grandbabies are 5, 3, and 18 months.
okay,
So
okay.
they really squeeze.
They think
You
the
say Valley Cars?
speaker view. Oh, that's cool.
should, but I don't know why
That's
it's
cool.
not
Those
switching.
yours?
If they were.
I just
got
would
rid
be-
of the Mustang.
Concerned with the
But I still
recording, but I
have,
guess the audio recording is the
for
only
that.
thing that's required, right?
Correct.
I
Because it's
watched
not gonna
Gone in
show all of
60
these across the
Seconds last
top.
night and Saw the
It may
Shelby.
not, or it will, it might be some point,
Oh.
but you're
I
right.
have a school crossing guard again.
Yeah, they're nice cars.
That,
Yeah.
I'm a
That Challenger, I got, it's got a feature on it, it's all line lock.
Yep.
You can
Right
put all
down
the
from my
pressure
house,
on the
I'm the
front.
last
You can
resort.
do a real
They
nice
can't
burnout.
get anybody
And
else.
it's got what they call launch, and you can set the RPM from 1200 to 3500 RPM. Put the gas pedal to the floor, hit the button, and it takes off.
Oh,
It's
wow.
like a Stoltenberger. I guess we can call the meeting to order. It's 9 o'clock. The first order of business will be comments from the public related to items on the agenda to be added items to the next agenda. If anybody from the public would like to speak. And if you want to speak on the diversity, when we get to the Diversity Affairs Commission, I'll give you another opportunity to speak there. I open to get as many opinions as I can, so we'll let you speak twice.
Okay, awesome. Rachel Dowling, County Board Supervisor for District 1, 642 De Pierce Street, Menasha, Wisconsin. First of all, thank you so much for letting me come and speak with you this morning. I am here because I'm the Vice Chair for the Diversity Affairs Commission. I do care about the topic and I see it on the agenda today. In the summer of 2021, I attended my first Diversity Affairs Commission meeting. Watching this meeting was one of the factors that made me want to run for County Board Supervisor. In January of 2022, I emailed a letter of intent asking to join the Diversity Affairs Commission as a community member. As someone with a medical disability, I really wanted to be a voice for people with disabilities in Winnebago County. It wasn't until after the April election that I was appointed to the Diversity Affairs Commission. My first course of action as a member was to read all the bylaws, the mission statement, and all the other materials pertaining to running the commission. Even with all my reading and research, I had a hard time understanding how the UW Extension has authority over the Winnebago County Diversity Affairs Commission. With 20 committees or commissions in the Winnebago County, all are under the authority of the Winnebago County Board. I understand that the Diversity Affairs Commission was set up to be accountable to the UW Extension. However, accountable simply means that the UW Extension is to evaluate the performance of the commission. I would say that the UW Extension has failed in this area, and there's been continued issues with running the Diversity Affairs Commission. I would just like to share a few of those with you guys today. Group member retention. The Diversity Affairs Commission has had more overturn than any other committee or commissions. Open meeting law violations. Inadequate survey forms after the educational meetings. The UW Extension altered documents pertaining to a diversity affairs meeting. No way to verify that the people who are attending the educational meetings are members of the public, live or work in Winnebago County. From the beginning, I was told explicitly that speakers were lined up under contracts. The contracts do not exist. We are still getting pushback about the educational meetings being recorded as required by the rules set forth by the county board. According to the diversity affair bylaws, vacancies should be filled by the sitting members of the commission, not the county executive. The goal of the group was supposed to help the people of Winnebago County, yet they've been solely focused on helping county employees. I found all the above very disheartening. And I know there's a need to reach all the members of our community who fall into a minority group. I wanted to be a part of reaching those individuals and helping them where they need help. The reality of this was it's not being done, and that's very sad to say the least. This commission had the possibility to make a real difference in the lives of citizens. Unfortunately, it was put with a weak set of bylaws and no one to oversee that our Wisconsin state laws are being upheld. At this point, the members of commission and the county board members, supervisors, fellow supervisors, I'm talking to you, would be able to do more as private citizens than the Diversity Affairs Commission has done in total. It would be great if we could modify and make changes to the current commission and continue forward. However, there are so many changes needed that the best way would be to demolish and start new with a more clear and concise set of goals and bylaws meant to be productive and help our citizens, not just keep the commission busy. If the UW Extension votes today to either organize or disband the commission, then you are claiming you have authority over the county board, and that's a tenuous precedent to set. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll talk about tomorrow, other diversity affairs right now. Mike Norton, District 20, 1029 South Main Street, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Two things I wanted to bring up for maybe future agenda items. One item, I did contact Sarah a few months ago about my idea about having a way to get students more involved to learning what county government does. I mentioned a couple of times to a couple of you about how a few years ago, I think as a 4-H project, they had them, the students interview us, county board members. I suggested that maybe we could have a similar program in the fall or sometimes in the school year, maybe on a Saturday where children can come to the Clogging Center, to have a quick thing, learn what the supervisor does, and have a mock county board session. When I was in NACO, interesting enough, there was a booth, a vendor who had a way we could devise a county board budget. Now, that program cost $10,000. I don't know if you have the money. I don't know if the county has that money, but I think that would be worthwhile looking into. The second thing, I know I've kind of mentioned a little bit at my park committee, and I'll mention here, I would like to see if maybe this committee or the extension, maybe helping what I would call a system where during the school year, what they have in other counties around this country, where they bring students in and for a few hours a week, they learn how to work in a courthouse office, or they learn how to work in the parks department or whatever. And then when you get later in the school year, spring and or summer, then maybe they could be hired either as part-time, and maybe if they graduate, maybe they want to even come work for the county. So that's my two ideas. You could look into the system of having, for lack of a better word, I would call student education of the county board process. I don't know what to call that. Student, and we have student government day. I mean, we'll have this year, but I think it should be more than just, spending an hour in the county boardroom. And the other thing is what I call inter-class learning program where people during the school year, students from all the high schools, or have to be, high school age or come in for a few hours, they learn the job, and then possibly at the end of the year, they could, in the summer, they can become a part-time student. That's my two ideas.
Anybody else in the public wish to speak on Zoom or? Anybody else wish to speak on Zoom?
Jared has his hand.
There is a
up on
hand
that.
up.
Hello, how are you guys doing today?
Jared has his hand up. Yeah.
Appreciate you guys. I can lower my hand, I guess now. Thank you guys for.
Pause. We are not. The audio is not coming through. Let me check a setting. Jared, if we could just do a test audio.
Sure.
Not yet.
Test.
Where's the box here?
Test. Hello. 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 Test. Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me now?
Nope.
All right, good. You guys can silence me, I'll tell you that much. It was supposed to be a joke. Anyway, but hey, first of all, obviously you guys know, I should say obviously, maybe you don't. I am the chair of the Diversity Affairs Commission. I've been on the Diversity Affairs Commission since December. Rachel brought up some points. I'm not going to rehash them, and you guys are going to discuss some of it later, but I just want to make a couple brief points and head out. But first of all, I hope you know that I appreciate each and every one of the board members. You guys are prayed for. You guys are really some of my heroes. I appreciate all the time you put in, especially for the amount of grief, especially in the last couple of years. But I've given just so you know, I've given my reasons for dissolution to supervisors Dowling and Haran. I don't know if they have them with them or not, but there were several reasons for it. Mostly, as Rachel touched on some of them, there are some significant issues with the bylaws and even the strategic plan. So for this year, as an example, our strategic plan has just 6 educational meetings, which we've accomplished, and it sits there. It would be my proposition that I think that things like these educational sessions, things like Supervisor Bender mentioned it at the board meeting on Tuesday, that we have even some issues with some HR function, workplace bullying and things like that. I think those could be handled in different commissions, different committees, and within the county group itself. So I'm in agreement that we need to make sure we take care of people. I'm in agreement that we need to be more inclusive. I just think our group does an inadequate job of that. And I think that could be handled in other areas. And also on Tuesday, many of those supervisors went to that National Association of Counties or whatever, NACO, and the conversation of right sizing of committees came up. This would be an ideal group or ideal commission to consider right sizing and taking some of the function and putting it somewhere else. I'll hang around for a while, but my reasons are out there. I've stated it before. I'm sure you guys have. I'm sure you guys already have opinions on this yourselves, but know that I appreciate you guys on the highest level. Something I think we'd all be well suited for is when good men disagree, tread lightly. And as a group of people, we're not enemies. We're just trying to find the best way to accomplish hopefully some of the same goals, which is having a more diverse and inclusive Winnebago County. So thank you guys for all you do.
Anybody else in the public wish to speak?
Supervisor Nichols? I'm trying to find my video here, but I might not be set up to show my video. Oh, here we go. Good morning. Supervisor Nichols, 402 Elm Street, Menasha. At the county board meeting on Tuesday evening was the first time I heard of any of this. So when I got home from that meeting, I watched the last Diversity Affairs Commission meeting and studied up on the bylaws and the strategic plan for the commission. Lots of things have been floated out there this morning, including open meeting violations and significant issues with bylaws and the strategic plan. Those things seem to be very straightforward to me. As a member of local government, I place a high value on transparency and open government and following the established rules. And so my concerns, and I hope that these things enter the conversation. Some questions I have would be, were the bylaws followed, the established bylaws followed in proceeding with votes to change them? And also, I firmly believe that if the committee, whether that be what the Diversity Affairs Commission and the UW Extension Committee, if it should get that far, considers dissolution of the Diversity Affairs Commission, then that should be specifically cited on an agenda, not under the broad spectrum of Diversity Affairs Commission or future of the commission. It needs to be specifically cited on the agenda to give the community an opportunity to respond and weigh in with their concerns and questions. Many folks were involved over a long period of time in creating this commission, and I believe we should respect their work and not make any hasty decisions at this point, but to weigh all the factors, consider what may or may not be happening or have happened over the last year or two, and move slowly, carefully, and deliberately through this process. Thank you.
Anybody else in the public wish to speak? Hearing none, we'll close that. with,
I have something to say.
oh, we got one more.
Hi, Debbie Wenzel, 635 De Pere Street in Menasha. Basically, I have 3 questions. As a minority within the Winnebago County, I am a female. I'm a solo parent, very different from being a single parent. There is no father involved and there is no family support. Very much a minority, especially in the Winnebago County area. I'm a veteran and I am disabled. And I emphasize a female veteran. One, I don't hear anything about this commission. And considering I fall in many of the minority groups, I'm thinking I should have heard something about this, especially since it's been around for what, 2 years? It means they're not getting the word out. So my questions are, how have the people on the commission that are supposed to be helping individuals such as myself benefited from the existence of this commission? I, for one, have not. What things have been found lacking for those the commission is supposed to represent? Are they being productive in any way? I've looked through their bylaws and their mission statements, which is what they call it, and it's all busy work. There's no productive work listed in there. It's just stuff to keep people busy. I heard that there's been a high turnover rate. To me, that says a lot of people want to be able to put it on their resume. That's not the reason for a commission, okay? And has the commission made any determinations onto what services and or laws could benefit those the commission are supposed to be representing? Those are things commissions are supposed to be doing, not just, oh, let's do an educational video, let's have a speaker. They're supposed to be helping us. And I don't see them doing that. And with their current bylaws, I don't see any way that they could. I agree something needs to be done, but I believe somebody stated earlier, sometimes the best thing to do is to rip it all down and start again. And I think that that needs to be done at this time. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak from the public?
I'm not seeing anybody.
Then we'll go on to the next order of business, approve the minutes from July 21st of 22.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as written.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Next, we'll go to safety share with Tom.
Does anybody have any safety shares? Hearing none, let's move on.
Let's move on. Go to the chairman. I'd just like to say that Chris and I presented the budget to John, and Mandy's position that currently is out of the budget. Hopefully he puts it back in at 0.8%, but we were informed we have to cut the budget by 4%. And in order to cut the budget by 4%, we have to eliminate people. So that is the choice that Chris had, and that is the choice that went down. Hopefully it gets put back in. If it doesn't, we can try to put it back in after budget is proposed. Hopefully we get it back in. It was an important position. I don't think we can afford to lose her. Not if we lost her, but we don't want to lose that position. So hopefully John will put it back. I think he will at 0.8%, 0.8. So hopefully it happens, and we can continue to move forward in that. Next, we got UW Extension Program Education Reports and Updates with Dana Berger.
Morning. Go ahead and pass these around.
You have enough for me to take one?
Yes, definitely. Yep, there should be enough
Thanks, Rachel.
for everyone in here.
Oops. Let me get one.
Oh, yeah, you probably wrote it. No. Oh. On purpose. So for some that may not know me that well, I'm Dana Berger. I'm the 4-H program educator for Winnebago County. I am a UW Extension or UW Madison employee. And I wanted to, seeing as we just had the fair a few weeks ago, I wanted to report on that a little bit and also kind of give you a taste of typically what I'm reporting out each month to our volunteers, our membership, and our Leaders Association board. So I provided you with my most recent report that I did at our Leaders Association board meeting this last Tuesday, and it kind of highlights on a monthly basis things that are going on, what's coming up, report some results of things that we've done. And so I just want to kind of briefly go over some of this information, and of course, FAIR is a part of that. And any questions that you have about that, I'm happy to answer. So typically, I'll break up the reporting into state updates, extension updates, and then for each program specific updates. I know Chris handles a lot of these state updates when he does his portion of the meeting. In relation to 4-H, we get information out to our volunteers and youth, pretty regularly. So some of the hot topics right now are a brand new financial handbook that came out for our club leaders and our youth treasurers to utilize. And what the handbook does is it teaches not only the volunteers, but the youth on how to properly, handle and document and account for club dues and expenses. Each club sets a budget. They have expenses. They have money come in the form of dues. And so that youth treasurer learns the whole process of how is a check written? How do we subtract that out of the balance that's going, right now in the club budget? So they get a little bit of that financial education in there. And so that's what this handbook kind of focuses on. Good practices, proper handling of cash in that within a club. We each year, every club has to turn in what's called an annual expense or financial report. So it's part of their charter renewal process so that they can renew to continue being a club for the next 4-H year. And so every club leader and their treasurer has to sit down and fill out and account for all of their expenses and income. They send that information into me. It goes through an audit. We send that on up to the state office at UW-Madison, and they review it as well. And so those are all the different kind of checkpoints for making sure that our clubs are handling money properly. If God forbid there's some type of embezzlement or something awful going on, these are the checkpoints that we use to help avoid and track that. The state, UW-Madison, offers a number of 4-H trips and experiences to our youth. And a couple of them coming up are the National 4-H Congress. It's actually taking place in November. So youth in our county can sign up or register for these events, and then they go through a little bit of a process where they answer some questions about their 4-H experience, and the state office will choose delegates then to represent different counties and attend these trips. What's nice is the 4-H, these trips aren't cheap. So our Leaders Association, and of course, with the help of the volunteers and the youth, all the fundraising they do helps pay for a portion of the youth that do attend these trips. So for instance, we've got our dipper at the fair and the basket raffle and pizza making. Some of those funds are used to help fund those youth experiences on the state level. And then we have Fall Forum coming up in November, and that's where youth and volunteers get together. They get to attend a number of different workshops, which provides them new ideas and activities that they can bring back to their clubs and counties. Some of the extension updates I'm going to kind of skip over because I believe Chris is going to probably talk a lot about that. I always inform them of what's going on in our extension office. Who are the new hires? Who has left? What do we have coming up in the office as a whole? So I've mentioned, Mandy taking a different position. We've got a new Hort person. And then, of course, our big civil rights audit that's coming up. I wanted to explain that process to them so that they're aware of what we're really looking at. And Chris, you've explained the civil rights process. I believe I know it's come up in multiple meetings. Does anybody have questions about that process in general?
Is that something that's new, civil rights audit?
No.
Because when I was covering the extension for the paper 40 years ago, we didn't have anything like that that I was aware of.
Yeah, so
So, and audit is a term, but it's also a civil rights review.
Review.
It is, because of the nature, of the federal grants that, fund extension, and the appropriation bills. We just have a responsibility to document and review the efforts that we're making to reach all audiences, throughout, Winnebago County or our targets. And so there's a documentation component, just to show what our reasonable efforts are, because it's one of those things that we also note that, we can make reasonable efforts to, reach out to, any and all audiences, but that doesn't mean that they're going to participate in the programs. So that, so there's, some of that is a review of demographics, just who are the residents of our communities, who are our communities, what reasonable efforts and what outreach are we making to all of our communities. And then the other component is a planning or a looking ahead to, in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, planning cycle of what are some other ways or new ways or other areas of emphasis, as we would, include in our planning. So,
Thank you for explaining that.
yeah.
I know last time then we get told or look for more minorities to focus on recruiting.
So the larger USDA review that was done, oh gosh, was that 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, maybe even almost 6.
Maybe
but-
even 6 years ago. So yes, they did. So what they would like to see is parity. So for instance, let's say, and I apologize, I don't know the exact percentage of, say, the Hispanic population in Winnebago County. Let's say it's 4%. So USDA would like us to strive towards what's called parity. So if there's a 4% Hispanic population in Winnebago County, does our membership represent, our current membership represent 4%? So those are goals that we work towards, goals that don't happen overnight. It's very, it's hard. And so that's why whenever I can, I bring this information to our volunteers and our leaders association. There was a really good link on demographics for Winnebago County right here. And I always say, take a look at this link and just take a look at where our county is at and what the demographics are. And then look at what we currently have in membership and what are some ways we can get creative and reach out to these different groups. So.
And just a point of an update. So one of the things that was discovered through the federal review is not necessarily that Wisconsin and its 4-H programs were not reaching minorities or diverse populations, but we had the way that we were recording and reporting didn't match up with the way that the USDA had their expectations. So some of that was an education of just making sure that we report in that way. The other piece is we also, while it is sometimes when you look at demographics easy to look at our racial and ethnic makeup, there are other underserved audiences and populations in our communities that we need to be, that we strive to be aware of and ensure that we have opportunities for them to connect to the university resources. So that's all part of that discussion. This will be my last statement, and then I'll turn it back to Dana. I anticipate that this committee will help us with our dry run of our presentation that we will be giving the first couple days in November. So in our October meeting, we would like to share, because part of it is we share a presentation of the overview of the residents and the communities in Winnebago County. What intentional efforts and outreach that we're making, and then other either opportunities or obstacles that we may be facing, and whatever that might, whatever those might be. So that slated for the October meeting, in addition to other agenda items.
And then the fun stuff, the program updates. The first thing we talk about is the county fair. So how many of you were able to attend, or I saw a number of you there, so able to go and attend. So as you probably noticed, that carpeted wing over in the expo was dedicated to 4-H, which is pretty cool this year. We were able to kind of do all of our activity stations and programming within that expo, or that carpeted area of the expo. So Sarah and I did a number of fun activities for kids. They could come by a few times during the day and do crafts and Lego challenges and different things. And so I tried to track, how many kids were stopping by the tables, and it was pretty neat. We served over 175 kids with our different activities that week during the fair. So that was really fun to see. And of course, that's just a small piece of what they're doing, of what 4-H is doing. The fair is, the whole expo building pretty much, and all of the barns, of course. There's tons of youth in the barns with their animals and their exhibits. So that was very exciting. Overall, the fair, we thought went really, really well. It seemed like I've never seen quite as much traffic in the expo building as we had before, this year. It was busy, it was steady. Kudos to the fair board who planned a lot of extra special things as well that happened inside of the expo, which drew people in. So that was really, really neat to see. As far as the youth exhibitors, to be honest, I heard no major complaints. We didn't have any real, big issues. Usually once in a while you hear about, oh, there was kind of a scuffle in this barn, some parents were getting along, or, whatever, but I heard none of that this year, which was wonderful. And as I was able to walk through the barns a little bit and talk with the youth, they all had smiles on their faces and were happy to be at the fair because it's their favorite time of year. They're with their friends. They get to show off their projects and earn premiums and ribbons. And it's just, they kind of really look forward to that.
How many youth fair entries did we have this year? And how does that compare to past years? Are we up, same, or down?
I don't have an exact number. That's something we would need to get from the fair board. They're the ones that kind of coordinate all of the entries in that. But what I can tell you is, from what I heard Mike Domke say, the entries in the expo were about the same. I think the only area that was down was poultry. And I want to say it was because of the whole avian flu thing that happened in the spring. And so a number of families were hesitant and do we register, do we not? And I think that was the only area that was really affected this year.
How about open class? Do you have anything in
Ooh,
there?
do you know anything about open class?
I don't know.
Yeah, that would be a fair
Or
board
just-
They
question.
look pretty similar to what I've seen.
Yeah, and they're in the expo and they did say those numbers were similar, so I'm gonna assume it was comparable to other years as well. So. But it looked nice and full, with a lot of really, really good exhibits, so.
Is the Dipper gonna ever serve hot dogs again?
I don't know, it was,
Hard hitting stuff.
Yes.
Doug.
where's the potatoes, the baked potatoes with the toppings, we heard that.
Because they were cheap. I loved them,
Okay.
like a buck.
Yeah, so the Dipper did all ice cream treats this year, and I don't know, it went really well with ice cream. They had to do like 2 emergency ice cream purchases. They had to buy extra coolers to keep the big tubs frozen. They added the shakes this year, which was new, and those went over well. They did really well. So I don't know if they're gonna stick with ice cream again, or if they'll get enough pressure from some people saying they want their potatoes and hot dogs again. So we'll have to see. The basket raffle at the Leaders Association did have their best year yet. They had 36 different items that were up for the raffle. Or it wasn't really it was a raffle. People bought tickets and threw tickets in the buckets, and they did very, very well. So that was attributed to, I think, the increased traffic in the expo building as well. So that was, but overall, yeah, it was a good fair. People were happy. It was hot. It was hot and humid, but yeah.
I think
it was-
attendance was really good. I mean, they were parked all the way back to the fence on Y.
Yeah.
So it's like some years, like the year before, it rained and there was hardly nobody there.
Mhm.
But this year, basically Friday and Saturday night was just, you could hardly get another car in that parking lot.
Yeah, it was busy. Some of the ceremonial type things that we did at the fair, we had the youth award ceremony on Sunday morning, and that was well attended, and that's where we recognize all of our youth, those that received a key award, scholarships, if they participated in special committees, groups, traveling experiences, things like that. So that's when they all get recognized, and that was very nice. And then we also did we do a spotlight stage every year, and this year it was on a Saturday afternoon, and so 4-H youth get to sign up, and they do demonstrations. Some of them might perform or sing, play an instrument. We actually had one club that put together a theater troupe, and they did about a 10-minute skit, and it was adorable. They did a really good job. So spotlight stage is always a lot of fun as well for the youth to kind of perform and show off their stuff.
It was nice, it's affordable to families. Like the Midway gets 35% of all ticket sales, but they don't think they can do it for that anymore with the price of fuel and the cost. A lot of those rides, they get $4 or $5 in other areas just for one ride, and they're only getting $5 per ticket. So, you know, they're saying that next year they're probably gonna want 45% of because they can't come here for 35, you know, they pre-sell tickets at $12. You know, so you take 35% of $12 and you can ride rides all day. You know, it's not working for them. So, you know, that's why it's hard for the fair. They try to give you everything in one price. You go to other fairs like the Badger State Tractor Pull might cost you $20 just to get the tractor pull. Here it costs you $12 or $30 for a membership, and you can go to all 5 events. So, you know, they try to keep the fair at a reasonable cost so a family can still afford it. You know, not where they could break everything apart and let you in the fair for free, and you can buy your ride tickets, you can buy your grandstand activities, but it'll be probably $25, $30 to see some of the events in the grandstand, like the demolition derby will cost you, the Badger State Tractor Pull will cost you more money, and they want to keep it. That's why the county basically in the budget, we give the fair, like last year we gave $100,000 because they lose money every year. You know, they have to pay for all the waste that you know the animals make and stuff like that. And there's nothing but expenses to the fair with very little bit of income. So it's a great organization, and I'm happy to support it.
Yeah, they did a really good job just bringing in different things and activities for everybody to enjoy. And yeah, I think that's what the huge increase in traffic was this year. So they did a good job. Any other questions about fair? I think if you want like exact numbers for exhibitors and things like that, have Mike Donkey come on in and they can pull from their software, all of those specific details. So.
I would think you'd be doing that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mike-
yeah,
Mike
they
either
report.
comes in November, or December and gives
Yeah.
the annual report.
Usually takes them a little bit to get all of their, information and accounting and that together. So.
I want to say that I'm really excited to hear that students are learning financial information and how to go about making a budget, how to write a check, how to work with a bank account in a bank. I think that is sorely lacking in our public education.
Yeah, I would agree. Some of my career history is in the financial industry, and I was a consumer credit counselor and a budget counselor for about almost 10 years. And so, yeah, it's really lacking.
You get kids leaving high school, going on to college, and they get credit cards for free and have no. I've got a daughter-in-law who did that and racked up $40,000 on her credit card because she'd spend at Burger King and they put $5 in addition because she had overdrawn. And you don't, how do you know? Anyway, thank you.
Sure.
I'm pleased to hear that.
Yeah, the fair went well. Continuing on with some of the other things. Looking forward, Clover Buds, we're going to continue with the monthly workshops like we did last year. That was something kind of new that was implemented. They get a little record book and Sarah teaches monthly workshops so that the Clover Buds get to dip their toes in all the different project areas that 4-H offers. We're going to expand that this year and add an exploring group. So just to put it in context, Clover Buds are kids that are in grades K through 2. Explorers are in grades 3 through 5, basically. That's typically the age range that will sign up for that project. Exploring is just that. They get to explore all different projects. And so it's just on a little bit higher level than the Clover Buds. And so we're going to implement that coming up this year.
Same philosophy, everybody gets everything.
Well, if they take their stuff to the fair, yes. Yeah, so the Clover Buds and the Explorer workshops are part of the education that the 4-H program does for those youth. So, but yes, they can take any of those things to the fair.
But I'm not sure if that's, if you asked at the fair, the explorers get red, blue, and pink and white ribbons. They don't, the participation
Oh,
I
I
didn't
wanted.
know if
I
that's
see
where
what
you
you're
were going
saying.
with that, or-
Okay.
Well, if I have to judge something, I gotta know what I'm judging. Everybody gets a ribbon. at
Everybody
evening.
gets a ribbon when you did silver, but yeah, they just get participation
Yeah,
with the.
I'm not about to break off into swine yet.
And then the back page talks about, we have re-enrollment coming up that opens Tuesday after Labor Day. And so all of our 4-H membership is encouraged to re-enroll. And part of my plan of work moving forward for this year is to really focus on new pathways to membership, to become a 4-H member. Right now, we have we're traditionally, we have just community clubs where youth will sign up for a community club. We have about 19 different community clubs that are located in Oshkosh, Amur, Winneconne, Neenah, and kind of the outskirts within the county. And so we're finding that community clubs are not for all families. These community clubs, they meet monthly, usually in the evening at a public spot, be it a church basement or a community center like what we have here. And however, there are a lot of youth that a community club doesn't work for them. And so we're trying to meet those youth halfway by implementing some in-classroom clubs. So creating actual 4-H clubs within a classroom. And part of that, I think I might have talked about this a little bit last time, is the new Chick Quest program that we're implementing. I don't know if that rings a bell for you at all. So the Chick Quest program, it's actually a 4-H curriculum that we have, and children learn about the life cycle of a chicken. So we go in there, we got a grant to purchase incubators and all the supplies that we need. We go in there, we train the teachers, the kids learn about chicken embryos and eggs and the whole hatching process. They actually hatch chicks in the classroom. And it's just kind of a neat way to introduce 4-H, I think, to these kids. And we're actually going to create in-classroom clubs. So it'll be about a 6-week program. Sarah will be going into the classrooms for the most part and meeting with the kids at least once a week. And we'll be talking about all different, not just the life cycle of a chicken, but we will also implement what's egg production in Wisconsin and talk about agriculture in Wisconsin as well. And so I think it's going to be really fun for the kids. We have a number of teachers that are really interested. I think it's going to become popular. And so that is one way that we want to, it's one way that the kids can be a part of 4-H. We'll also open that opportunity to all of those kids where if they say want to enter an art project that they did in school at the fair, or maybe they did something for a science fair and they want to enter that in the fair, we want to make that available to them as well. So just trying to be creative and increasing membership and reaching more youth. Let's see. Summer camp we had reported on in the past. So we're already making plans for next year. Typically what we do is we interview high schoolers for counselor positions for the 2023 summer camp. And then we start training them in January already. So we're not too far off from that when you think about it. At the end of the year will be here before we know it. Huge thank you to Steve Binder, and I know you've attended I think you were all at the Parks Committee meeting. You look familiar. And Karen Powers, just want to thank you for your support in renewing our parks agreement that we have. So it looks like it hasn't completely been adopted yet, but what we're looking at doing is reducing some of the costs that have been charged in the past for, say, horse shows, opening the facilities up to more educational opportunities if we need to use the parks facility, and just working through that whole process. Greatly appreciated. There are some educational events where the expo building would be excellent. There's enough space to do it, but it was cost prohibitive in the past to have to go and rent the facility. So it would never, work out. And this opens that up a little more. And so I appreciate all the support with that. It sounds like it's probably gonna go through, but we'll find out, I guess, at the next meeting, and then I think it goes to the
County board.
county board for resolution, so. Other items just kind of coming up, we have our awards banquet coming up, and this focuses on the volunteers in our program, so we want to definitely recognize and appreciate our volunteers because there are many that put in countless hours in working with our youth and forming those youth adult partnerships. So we award them with in different ways with certificates and pins, and we want to make sure that they're happy and want to come back and volunteer.
I may have your sheet here because I've got notes all over the bottom. Is that yours? Do you need that for reminders? Because I'm reading ice skating ugly sweater.
Oh, you must have my notes.
I think I have your notes.
I will use it the reading Tuesday.
I'm looking at your sheet and I'm saying, I've got more on my sheet than you do.
Yes, I had my notes from the Tuesday meeting. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, there's blank. I apologize.
No, it was interesting to me.
Well, I'm glad it was funny stuff and not something, Yeah, so upcoming events, what they're planning is are some fun events for just kids to participate in. So they traditionally have a Halloween skating party. They're talking about, they have the wonderful ice rink in Neenah, maybe doing an ugly Christmas sweater, skating party kind of a thing. So yes, those are those notes. So yeah, it just kind of gives you a taste of what I report out every month to our association, and kind of encompasses, everything that's going on. So any questions or
Not a question. I just want to thank you so much for this because it does give us a good synopsis of what you guys are doing.
Sure.
And I think at last meeting, I did ask you about the students who don't have access to animals. Could you repeat that for me again?
Sure. So a lot of our kids that don't live on farms are still taking animals to the fair. And so they'll work with local farmers in the community and kind of do like a little management agreement. The kids will work with the animals and then show them at the fair for those local farms.
How do you, in my family with my grandchildren, I find that they are so scheduled, 5 and less. How do you work this into those crammed schedules that those kids have?
That is the $1 million question. It is a challenge, and it's definitely part of one way of trying us to solve that challenge is forming some of these in-classroom clubs. We now have an audience that's there, and it's kind of a win-win because we're helping the teacher out. The teachers love when they have other people from the community come in and help teach different things. And we have their undivided attention. And it doesn't require the parent to run them somewhere else to a monthly meeting, and yet they're still getting some really valuable education. So that's one way, but yeah, it's a challenge. Many of our 4-Hers are juggling sports and music lessons and, part-time jobs if they're in high school, and
Sports.
Yeah, sports is huge.
Just
And so it's a challenge for all youth
And
organizations.
Kale had, is that the chartering of the horse and pony, dog and dairy projects allows youth who that's really all that they want to learn about, that's their passion area, to deep dive into their passion area. They still get the teamwork, they still get the interpersonal skills, plus they're doing it around their particular animal. So I think this can also be an option or a model that will allow others to do that. And then it helps them if they have to pick and choose, and families pick and choose, that they can do the things that they want to do, and not that extra stuff, that extra hoops that they might feel like they need to jump through. So
Thanks for pointing that part out, because I think I glazed over that, so I didn't address it. So yeah, existingly, we have our horse and pony project, our dog project, and our dairy project, and they're all chartered groups, meaning they can raise money, they have their own checking, savings accounts, and they handle their own finances. And right now, it's required that kids join a community club in order to be a member of 4-H. But like Chris said, if there's a youth that all they want to do is dogs, they don't want to do anything else, they have the option to just join that dog project now and not have to join a community club in addition to it. So it's one meeting every couple of months rather than 2 meetings every month or every couple of months. Because we realize, yeah, families are busy, so.
You know, that's a good way to make money for college, like the animals themselves, you could bring probably maybe 2.5 times the what you'd get for that market.
Yeah, I go to the Wisconsin Sheep and Wool Festival. Y'all, I'm a knitter.
Okay.
I've got my knitting here. And it's amazing what those kids do down there as I'm watching them in the competitions with their sheep, making them stand correctly, shearing them correctly, doing all of the stuff that they need to do. And not only that, but they are, and I'm going to say, youth citizens who have a respect for, dare I say, life. They're not necessarily saying, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, 3 bags full, ma'am. But what they are doing is making space for you to go through the aisles. They are spraying down there. And it's just phenomenal to watch them. It's a ton of fun.
It's amazing though. You ask them about their animal, they're very knowledgeable, you know.
Oh, they really are.
They know that animal like the back of their hand, you know, and I'll ask them.
They're their
they might
babies.
know they don't have bottom teeth, you know, like a goat, you know, so it's like, it's just good to see kids doing something constructive rather than basically playing a game on a phone. You know, I mean, they're learning the values of what work is. And, you know, you're taking pride in that animal because they want that animal to do good, so that, you know, when you get a blue ribbon, you feel good about yourself. I achieved the goal, you know.
It's a real treat to see it.
And you
Yes.
probably noticed, but all these pictures are taken from fair, so. There's a lot of good ones. It's fun to go through the barns and snap pictures of the kids of their animals.
Yeah, and you look, they all have a big smile on their face.
Yeah, they're all happy. They're all enjoying it, so. Maybe not when it's mucking the stalls time, but it's mucking the stalls. Yeah. So any other questions or?
Yeah, seeing none, we'll move on to the administrator department report, Chris.
Yeah, couple of things for the group. I do not have the county executive. I put the budget piece in case the county executive released the budget for discussion. That has not occurred at this time. So I don't have, I can share, it's similar to what Steve said, some of the strategies in place to reach the levy target with the number of increases, that had to be absorbed within the budget with Mandy's departure. There was not a way to refill that position and meet the levy request, hit the levy number moving forward. That said, part of the process is to do budget add requests that the county executive will consider adding back into the budget. The budget ad request that I submitted does include, I've actually submitted 2 for a 1.0 health and well-being educator and a 0.8 health and well-being educator. The 0.8 is at the executive's request. So that position has not been scoped out. I don't want to put so I do not have a full position description because I'm not going to put the cart before the horse. I'm not even going to, I will answer questions about the possible scoping, but until November, we will not move forward on that position at that point in time. That said, I have had conversations with the Health and Wellbeing Institute director, who would ultimately have some oversight programmatically for that role, and that's favorable. She's favorable and would welcome the county funded health and wellbeing educator to help meet the needs of residents of the county, and then also be able to engage with statewide teams. The other news that I'd like to share is that on August 29th, Madison Potratz will join us as our horticulture educator. That process took way longer than I thought, and working through a series of things. So we are working on onboarding plans. In September, there will be an opportunity for hopefully at least for an introduction. So she'll provide an introduction to herself, and you'll get to meet her. She actually has some extension outreach experience. Is that she was a outreach associate with the with an extension master meat crafters program, which I had to actually look up after seeing her application materials, but that did exist pre-pandemic. So she has some experience with extension and also has a strong background in marketing and promotion. So those two combined along with her passion and right now gardening and home lawn care is a hobby, which will now turn into a profession in some capacity. So looking forward to Madison joining us, and we'll have an opportunity for introductions.
Where's she from, Chris?
Oshkosh.
Okay.
I mean, I know that that's her resident, or her current residence, mailing address. I don't, that's not part of the interview screening, is to go back and do the family lineage to be able to do that. But those will be things that we can learn once she starts on board. But she is from the area. She actually currently and is transitioning from a position at UWO, so to work with us.
You mentioned the meat crafters or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Can you share with us what that is?
No, because
Oh, okay.
only because I don't know, and the program is sunset. It was something that I believe what it was is it was like a short course type opportunity where individuals that were in the meat industry would do like a multi-month long, where there would be hands-on workshops to be able to enhance their skills. I don't think that program has been offered. I don't think that program's been offered since the pandemic. At this
I just
point.
didn't know what it was.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I didn't know either. It's an extension program that was run out of the College of Ag and Life Sciences. So that's one where Division of Extension is their standalone division. We have close relationships with the College of Ag Sciences, but there are extension appointments and extension roles within the college that do occur and happen that we don't always know the ins and outs of. But I'm going to guess that some of our agriculture educators, especially in the livestock industry, might have some more familiarity with that. So it's kind of an interesting, at least in general, it was an interesting piece, and that could be things that we can learn some more about. So the other opportunity that we're taking advantage of is with I'll go back. Relating to staffing, the proposed budget does include, so remember the regional ag staffing strategy has some reliance on other counties in the area. So I'm moving along 3 budgets at the same time, or in similar stages, and they're at least progressing forward, not backwards. So I'm hoping to have on or around or at the first of the year to begin some staffing strategy, to begin filling those positions with a regional crops educator, which, if everything goes right, will be a 3-county position, and then a regional dairy. Actually, that would be a 2-county position. Apologies. For the regional crops educator, and then the regional dairy educator would be a 3-county position. So that would be if all of the partners are county partners, and the budgets all move forward to include that. So working on that, hopefully, for sure the dairy educator is going to happen, because that is a retirement in Outagamie County, and the budget does include and has gone through executive review. So it will be, we're at a very close to a similar spot where the executive will release that budget in Outagamie County, similar to Executive Daniel here. So those are some things. Staffing. We're also taking advantage of an open office, a couple of open offices, to allow staff to do some moving and some cleaning. One of the things that is it's both a pro and a con with extension mindset is that we have a tendency to hold on to things because we think we might need them someday. And there's a lot of things that are long overdue to be to be repurposed, upcycled, recycled, donated, or just plain thrown away. So using some of the opportunities, so sometimes in order for things like this to happen, sometimes you need, it's like those little puzzles, the 12 square puzzle where you have to have at least one open square to start moving things around. So we have some open squares or an open square to be able to do that. So we're trying to be smart. We'll donate any any books or reference materials like that will be donated so that somebody else might be able to use them, create some resource or reference libraries as needed. Enough. I know I went through it, even in 15 minutes, I identified about 15 3-ring binders that were very outdated in the ag office, that were things that one of the things that with our ag programs, we do a lot of the education portion of policy. So there's changes in Farm Bill or other state or federal policies. And then the local agencies or the state agencies are the ones that work to implement. And in some cases, we oftentimes, our extension provides educational resources to help basically decipher all of the gobbledygook that the legislators put into all of these programs. And so some of these are like 6 farm bills old, which you might as well be written in a different language. So, doing some of those cleaning pieces. And what else? What are my other bullet points?
I'm sorry. Area, region, and state.
Yeah, so any of our, so one of the things moving forward, there are, so facility, there is a, overall, we're starting, and are looking at meeting rooms and spaces. We're not necessarily back to 2019 usage levels, but but we are getting there. We're definitely moving back there. Individuals want to move forward. One of the things we have seen is a small amount or a small percentage of cancellations lately with the current uptick. Some groups are saying, no, we're not, they're choosing not to. They're making their own decisions as opposed to, relying on others. So the meeting room usage is still one of the things that is, we have one of our support staff. That's one of her primary roles, is to just keep communicate with individuals, those that book, providing meeting the needs, and trying to the limited tech support that we're able to provide, which is not a lot, but we do the best that we can. So that we're starting to see that at a point where it's still manageable, not necessarily having to like cancel, or nobody bumps, but there are still some days that are open, but we also have some days in which we have multiple users. So there's I know that I heard the comment as I was getting ready about the empty parking lot. There are times, yes, there's not a single car out front, and then there's other times in which it's quite full. So which was getting closer to normal as we're getting to at least a point of stabilization. And then just area, regional, and state updates. One of the things, the area updates. So Outagamie, Wapaka, and Winnebago counties, the ones that I work with closely. Budget processes are moving forward with some retirements and resignations. There's some opportunities to be able to collaborate and look at some things differently. I don't recall if I mentioned, so Karen Dickerel is the current lifespan educator in Outagamie County. She is retiring on October 7th. She has 30+ years with extension, so she has earned a well-deserved and well-earned retirement. And so that actually will give an opportunity to build a HDR and HWB team built that we can that can have individuals that are the plan is that each county will have an educator this will be their home or their primary audience, and or their primary office space with connections to the local community. But then the other piece is that they will then have some opportunities for collaboration, because in Wapaka County next week, the posting is closing for their lifespan and financial educator position. In Outagamie County, I've been given approval, once we can figure out when we can post for an additional lifespan and financial education educator in the Health and in the Human Development and Relationships Institute. And then we have Todd here, who is financial education, is his primary, with some family engagement and relationships programs that he also does. So we're looking at building a team that understands where our areas of impact, have the areas of potential impact, which are around that lifespan education and financial security education. That's where we can build and most positively impact either the residents and the communities directly, or as we partner with community organizations that we can also do train the trainer and those types of things. So intentional ways of outreach and using evidence-based and research-based teaching tools and programs to have positively impact the community. That's our area. I talked about regional, which would be the ag related, and I think there are no new state updates, but then again, I haven't checked my email, so who knows? So we're still moving along as far as that. With the new assistant dean will be named at some point soon, and that will be taking Matt Hansen's place, as I mentioned at the last meeting. So, questions?
The farm position, I don't know, did you touch on that one, Chris?
Yeah, all of the proposed budgets include regional ag educators with either regional dairy educator and regional crops educator. So those individuals would be part of where the intentional, and I know I've got some guests, so just real quickly, intentionality, instead of having one Winnebago County educator that tries to cover all things agriculture in the area, extension is intentionally moving to a broader geography, but having very much more focused topic areas, because not only do, well, yes, the producers are one of our target audiences. The other target audience or other partner are those agricultural professionals that then engage with producers. So that's where the narrower focus of content area is really critical, because the individuals who are cultivating knowledge or graduating from their academic programs are not taking general agriculture. They're coming out with a focus and a specialization. So we're matching up with the industry much more so. So that's key. And the other piece, that connection with having those regional educators, is we also connect to the broader network of there's currently in place now a statewide beef specialist, outreach specialist that our residents in our agricultural community have access to, a swine specialist. There's a team of farm management team that will help, that can provide resources on those farm management decisions, so that producers can make good decisions, regarding land rents or buildings expansion, estate planning, or farm transition planning, those types of things. So there's 3 or 4 individuals on the team there. So there's those, in addition to, it's not just our residents our community only has access to those areas, that we also have access to the broader statewide network and the entire extension network.
So I now have another question.
Yes.
How does the Land and Water Committee collaborate with you?
Yep. So one of the things, when I mentioned earlier about how, as we were cleaning out in some of the federal and state programs, in many cases, I think they implement policy and program, whereas many cases there is an educational component that's required and to be eligible or to participate. And we partner with the big, I'll say the land and water departments across the state and also, locally, to provide opportunities for those to meet those educational requirements or to provide those so for example, there may be a program in which a producer can apply to get funding for a buffer area. So it's one thing to have monies to do the buffer area. The extension oftentimes may be called upon to whether to conduct a field day, to provide education around why buffer areas might be important, utilize connections to land grant university research that will show and to teach or present of the positive impact of those buffer areas. And also one of the new things, so I know this, that with Wapaka County, is there are also harvestable buffer areas. So are there trying to educate, it's the education, it's like getting the word out about, so yes, there might be a program that's implemented or administered by our local land and water, because most of those are grants. They're either federal grants that then trickle and go through a state agency, which then come down to the county level. But then there are also the educational component of, so what if you don't get the grant? You can still focus on trying to do low-cost buffer areas, and that's where the education component comes in, about water quality, soil use. It might be rotational grazing, pasture management, no-till, which is planting seeds without digging up the soil. Those types of things of the more so of the why, maybe the why and the what behind it, whereas our land and water does the how. So there is a really strong there can be a strong partnership. I know Chad and I have talked, and he is really hoping we get this position filled because he would love to be able to provide that additional educational component that because of the nature of the grant funding and the projects, they're capacity limited to be able to do that. So we do provide an important role in helping educate the community and beyond just their enrollees. And the same, there are some federal programs with the FSA office of USDA here in the building that we will provide some educational support. That where it's kind of like where one drops off, where they administer a specific program, we can help educate the some of the background information or the why, and not just the how. Does that help? Did I?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chris? Hearing none, we'll go on to the announcing upcoming extension events at the county board meeting discussion.
I'm kind of the one that brought this up as far as an opportunity. I think if anybody listens or attends a county board meeting, sometimes you wonder how anything can get done, and people leave the meeting a little bit on a negative side, not positive. I'm just listening here today of all the positive things that extension has done, and this would be an opportunity for us to take and bring that. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. At least we could expose it, and there's TV coverage of it, that it might interest some people and show that it isn't just negative what's going on. The board all the time could be positive. You just gotta look for it a little bit more. But that's where it has to be a discussion, and what would you do and how would you do it and who would do it. And it can die for lack of a second.
Well, I think it's a good idea, Tom. I mean, when we talked about it, I mentioned that the fair was basically coming up and they could still get advance tickets for $12. You got a family of 6. So basically you save $3 a ticket, you save $18 if you buy them before they go to $15, so it's like, did that sell any tickets? I don't know. But if I was planning on going to the fair and I had a family I would buy my tickets in advance and save $3 a ticket, you know, so they had a drive-through, like a cheese sandwich through a farm, you know, we could have mentioned that, we didn't. But most of the county board didn't even probably know about it, you know, so it was an opportunity for them to see what 4-H does. But if you don't know what's happening, you're not gonna see it. So I think it's a good idea. I mean, it may not be a monthly thing, but I think that we could basically talk about, you know, what's coming up in the future, and if we wish to mention it, we can bring it in on the committee comments, and you or I, or any one of us can mention that, you know, we can take a turn every other month, we can, each of us, so. But yeah, I would second that, Tom, and I would basically think it's a good idea, though, too.
How are we gonna organize it?
I think we would just look through the pamphlet, you know, we get the newsletter every month, and if there's something in there that we think is noteworthy,
Coordinate with the board members, have the board members do it, and just involve Chris with it and tell him what we're doing.
sure, let us know that we're gonna mention that, you know, 4-H is having a drive-through.
I like the state one that I missed.
Yeah.
I want to say that's the Farm Bureau. That's,
Yeah,
yep.
Habit was in there, and I was disappointed I missed the state one.
Well, yeah, it takes all of maybe 30 seconds of the county board's time, and if we're that pressed for 30 seconds, I guess, maybe we shouldn't be on there. You know, I got 30 seconds to give, and to listen to anybody's comments, especially, you know, when it's something that you could take your family to, and get a little education and a cheese sandwich on top of it, you know, it's free, so
I'm amazed at the people that listen to it because it's being broadcast. You know, that's the thing I was thinking, it's kind of free publicity provided presented properly. Doug, do you have any comments?
No, I agree with what you and Steve were saying. I'm good.
Okay.
So moving on, we'll go to the Diversity Affairs Commission, just the discussion. I stated earlier when the meeting started that I would let everybody speak again. You know, a couple supervisors weren't here, and you took your time out of your day to come here. So I would like to hear what you have to say, you know, so.
Can I have a quick request?
Sure.
Bathroom break.
Sure. Take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
I will just.
Coffee available?
Yeah.
Yes.
Steve, I'm actually
So
Okay, the microphone is unmuted.
Yeah. Next, we got a discussion on the Diversity Affairs Commission, and I guess I'll start it out. You know, when I was on the commission, it was actually one of my goals was to get a diversity affairs coordinator. And when I got off it in April, and it wasn't my choice, I still pursued it. You know, I got that job posting from Allegheny County. They're hiring a coordinator. I talked to our county exec. He's not willing to put it in the budget, but I told him that I would be adding it to the budget, and I'd actually like to see the diversity commission added to the budget so that you have a director like we have, you know, somebody that leads your group, and you can rewrite the bylaws and work on that as a group, but you have somebody that has X amount of hours, have it be half-time, 8/10. That's his job. And as far as getting things in order, we have to get our own house in order before we can go out and teach other people. You know, it's like if you're a good minister, you best have your family in good shape before you go out and try to counsel other people. And it's no different. We have to be good stewards of our own workforce before we can go out and tell other people, well, this is how you need to run it. And as far as the commission goes, I would like to see it out of personnel. I think it should leave the extension and it should go to personnel. And when we get new employees, we turn over 22% of our employees. So, you know, when you look at, we got 1,100 employees, basically every 5 years that they're going to be changed. So it's a constant battle of trying to keep up with training people what's acceptable and what's not, you know. And I worked for this county for 24 years. I know how you have to be pretty thick-skinned here to come to work every day, but you have to support your family. So you have to, you know, it's like in school. You can't go tattle to the teacher and everybody will pick on you for that. You can't go to the supervisor and say, hey, so-and-so is just keep riding me, you know. We had people that would never turn down overtime, that they would basically badger them, you know, how greedy they were and don't you want to spend any time with your family? They don't know that man's circumstance. They don't know maybe his child's sick or he needs special care, and you know, he isn't working because he likes to work. You know, he's working because he needs the money to support his family, you know. And I just don't want to see the commission, if in November we can't get this diversity coordinator, I agree, you can't function without somebody in charge. But I think for 3 more months, we can move this forward. And I would like to see your committee look at and support trying to get this coordinator, even if it's halftime. But you need somebody that basically is going to work in that goal that the commission sets forward for him to follow. You know, I'm not on the commission no more, so I can't set the goals for the commission. But that was one of my goals, was to get that position so that we have somebody that, just like Chris takes care of our meeting here, you have somebody to take care of that meeting. And when you leave, the work doesn't stop. He's got 80 hours before the next meeting, or 160 hours to move it forward. You know, where right now, hour and a half a month, what are you going to accomplish? You're going to accomplish nothing. You know, we spent a year on the bylaws and strategic plan. We went to the county board 3 times and they kept sending it back to us. And yet I would ask them, just show up to the meeting, help us write it. But do you think one member would show up and help us? No, not a one. You know, so we had to write the bylaws, and I'm not college educated. I'm not, you know, qualified to write the bylaws and the strategic plan. You know, I mean, you need a coordinator that can help you and give you the guidance that you need, you know. So I would like to see the commission at least go, and if we can't get that in November in the budget, I'll support just ending the commission. You know, we'll go back to a group, and but if we get that position, I think we have an awful lot to gain, and I don't see why we wouldn't continue moving forward, because that was the next goal. And we were going to try to write a handbook, but do I look qualified to write a handbook? You know, I'm a high school graduate and I've been out of school for basically 40 years. I don't think that I can write a handbook that we should be teaching our employees on. We need somebody, like job posting says, that went to school for that. You know, I mean, it's like your husband was a doctor. Could I fill his shoes? No, I couldn't fill his shoes. You know, I don't have the first clue. If you told me you needed your appendix out, You'd be in bad shape if you're probably not gonna make it.
And I would tell you, Steve, that he loved going to his job every day. He loved it. He had an absolute passion for it, and it makes a difference, doesn't it?
It does, and that's all I would just like to see the commission continue on. I'd like to see the commission support hiring a coordinator and working with that person to build a commission that we're proud of. Because there is a need for it. It may not be what we have today, but if we just give up, that's not I'm a person that I like to move forward, and I'll step back, but if we have another goal, and it doesn't belong in extension, it belongs in personnel. They need to train our new employees. When they get 25 new employees, they need to get an education session, which we don't do now, and when we get our own affairs in order, then we can help other people. But you first clean up your house, and then you go out and help in the community. So that's all I guess I have to say. I'd like to see it continue at least till November, and I'd like to see it move forward with a director or a coordinator that would give you the guidance that the commission needs to move forward. So anybody else?
Mr. McGinn.
Yep.
Thank you. Mike Norton, District 20, 1029 South Main Street. And I give you a major thing. First of all, I think to answer your question, Rachel, why was it in need of extension? Let me tell you, I think you all know I'm very passionate about this. I got to create it. And I knew when I created it, I knew the only way I'd get my county board colleagues to vote for it is if I gave it a home. And the example I knew of was in Marathon County or Marathon County, UW Extension, which were it was how it was then. I will say that ever since then, I've learned this type of commission or committee is housed in various places. Some places it's housed in the executive's office or administration office. Some places it's a separate committee, wherever. I'm open to going to personal finance, health department, where I wanted to go originally or wherever. I'm open to that. I do agree. I'm not against the coordinator position that Steve wants, but I think I don't know if the rest of my board will go for that. The person who this came an issue of me because years ago, Oshkosh was thinking about let me back up. The county was going to partner with the school district and the city of Oshkosh to have a diversity coordinator, and it fell apart basically because the city of Oshkosh didn't want to fund it. They're part of it. And then you've heard this before. When I met with the diversity vice chancellor, he also said, Mike, instead of having a coordinating position, why don't you have a commission? And that's why I brought in a couple people, one from the Marathon County Commission Committee they had, from Portage County, and that's how we started. Okay. Now, a couple of things that I agree with. I think first of all, I need some staff, and that's one thing I kind of was disappointed in the meeting a couple weeks ago. It didn't have staff present who knew the history. With all respect, only really one, maybe two members really knew the history. Okay. I think I agree with the one person from the public. Yeah, if I was going to tune in the meeting, and maybe you, Rachel, and all I've been hearing for the last year and a half is this busy work of bylaws and that, I tell you what, that would turn me off. I think we have to move to the next phase. For me, that is, when I was at the health conference a couple months ago in Kenosha, they did get a coordinator, it was a really long marathon, trust me, they approved that, but they told me, what this commission has to do with help, I don't know, with extension, with the health department, wherever, has to meet with the different groups and see what their concerns and needs. This is my concern. I kind of tell Kid and I, with all respect, the county board are mostly white, English, I shouldn't say that, male and female. We need to find out and reach out to different diversity groups, whether no matter what the color is, what the creed is, whatever. And we haven't done that. I think that's what the next phase. One thing that has prohibited, not only do we have to work to get these bylaws last year and a half, we were in COVID, and the first meeting we had in public of the Diversity Affairs Commission was 2 weeks ago. I think now we can go meet the public in the various and get their input, and after that. So that's what I would like to say. You could change it. I know, Rachel, maybe not you personally, but you had a concern about recording. You know what? I do agree with you. I agree with you. I think there's some balance. I think if people have sensitive material, maybe that's not recorded. But you're right, it is the county board, it has to live by the county board rules, you have recorded. That has to be worked on with staff. But I would say, I would hope the commission stays. I think commission needs to go to the next phase. You know, me and Kay, I don't know who else was invited, we all were invited to this thing next week, the WCA, to learn more what they're doing. It's a big push they're doing. Kay and I were at this training that the health department had a couple of months ago. That we have to run, and I think another thing that this commission can do, you know, we've talked about all these different diversity groups. Why don't we have a coordinated position? I told us at the health thing to have, not a position, but a coordinated effort. Let's get all these groups together and see how we can help each other and not just, you know, we're all in a little vacuum. You know, UWO has their different groups, they're doing something. I went to this diversity day at Oshkosh West, they're doing their thing. We're doing our thing. Oshkosh has their own diversity inclusion committee, they're doing, why don't we at least once or twice a year get together and find how we can all work together and not resolve. And I told Kay, and this is my, both educate both them and us. And I think if there are problems and concerns that they have, we find out about it. You know, my effort to find members for the commission, I reached out to May Young, who's from the Hmong Association. She said she could not find, it's hard for her to find anyone to come on it because they're, I don't say the proper word, afraid, that they're shy and timid from doing it. I think there may be other groups. Why is that? And I think that's one thing that this commission can do. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as see if we don't get a coordinated version when terminate, but I think there's a little bit more work, a little more effort. And if that's effort in the next 3-4 months, maybe you can convince me. But right now, I think it was shorthanded. I can live with the changes you made, Sweetville. I can live with, you went recordings. I can live with, you know, if people have problems with the bylaws, bring them up and change them. The county board has to agree with them anyways, you know, the county executive appoints it because someone had to do it. Originally, it was the county board chairman I had. County board changed it to the county executive. I'm willing for change. I don't throw things and destroy things. I think we change and we'll see what goes. I think it's much needed. We just don't realize it. And I think that's what needs to be done in the next year or so. I think if we give me the time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the time.
Thank you, Mark.
Steve, may I make a point of information?
Sure.
So for those listening and anybody who will watch the recording, I would like to just point out that there's the phrase extension is being used interchangeably. And I would like to point out that there is the UW Extension, UW Education Extension and Agriculture Committee, which is a committee of the Board of Supervisors. And there is the Extension Winnebago County Department. So those two are two very separate pieces that I would like to just so that we separate, because I authored the enabling resolution, and there is not, extension does not have a voting role. The Department of Extension does not have we are a supporting role in it to provide support because we provide support to the committee. So that's where the relationship is there. I just wanted to clarify that because it gets used, and in my ears, some of the comments make it sound like we have a different role, or could be interpreted that we have a different role, but the commission is responsible to this committee. Though we do have staff that can try to support the work of, well, I would say prior to the departure of a key staff member, we had more capacity. We now have very limited capacity to be able to provide support to the commission as it stands until we're able to move forward or find out where our staffing levels will be.
Any other comments or discussion?
Well, I'm guessing that it's ultimately going to come back to me. So I'm happy for anybody to make comments up to that point, but I've got a whole little deal here.
Going this way, I'm Ralph Harrison from District 31, 3498 Nelson Road. And I'm a new supervisor, but I guess I've heard a lot of stuff on the street to people, different people. So I don't make my decisions based on that. I want to know stuff. So I'm here to learn as much as I can. To me, I don't know when this was organized, like you had said, Steve, our chair, Mr. Chairman, and then also why at that time they didn't get somebody or suggest to have somebody direct that at that time. The other things I've heard is that it's been really tough to have meetings. I don't know. And then also when you do have meetings, the people that are chairman don't come in or they resign or, so it's hard to get anybody to go along with the whole So it sounds like it never really got rolling, but that's all I know. But I guess I wanna, I mean, is there stuff out there? Yeah, there is some stuff out there that needs to be addressed, but are we going the wrong way or didn't we get off on the right foot or what got it to this point where the bomb's going off, you know? And I don't know about that, so for me to make a decision, I can't base on all this stuff I heard. I want to know really.
Yeah, until April, we met every month. We didn't
Okay.
have to basically get concise times with 5 people. Sometimes we only had a quorum, but we had enough people to have a meeting. It's like I missed the personnel finance meeting a couple months ago. They still had a meeting. You know, I mean, not all of us are, right now, Karen Bowers is in our meeting. We still can have a meeting, but they couldn't find a constructive time for all 7 members to meet. So that's why the chair, basically, she sent out emails and didn't get responses from some people. The school teacher, he basically teaches soccer. He can only meet on Wednesdays and Jared has catechism or something on Wednesdays. So the only day he could meet was Wednesdays. They couldn't meet on Wednesdays, so he resigned. You know, that commission, we gave our county exec some really good candidates that wanted to be on there. The ex-judge Haas wanted to be on there. She was on the Appleton Commission. He would not appoint her, you know. So even when you find good people that you want on there, it's his decision to appoint them. And if he says, no, don't matter who you want, you don't get them.
Can I make a point of clarification? Is
Sure.
that okay? Thank you. According to the bylaws, though, the Diversity Affairs Commission, as collectively, should be the sole people deciding who is on. So for your example, the judge, as long as you guys collectively agreed, the county executive can't say anything. He should have approved that appointment.
You should have approved it. But our bylaws, I don't know if they supersede. All the commissions are appointed by the county exec.
Well, so in the bylaws of the Diversity Affairs Commission, he can only affirm your decision. He cannot reject it.
Okay.
Just to,
Yeah, well, and that might be something that you want to contact her because she still wants to be on it. And she's an attorney that graduated from Marquette. You know, I mean, it's not like, you know, she's a very smart woman that would be very knowledgeable. I mean, she was on the Diversity Affairs Commission in Appleton and we tried for over a year. I've asked him 2 or 3 times to appoint her and he goes, no. So it's like, we're not getting a lot of cooperation and getting the people that we thought could help the commission, you know, and we tried. I mean, it took us almost a year to write them bylaws, and like I say, we went to the county board 3 times to get them passed, and they narrowly passed on the 3rd time. And we asked over and over, help us write them, but nobody came. So we did what we could do, and we did the best job that we could do. And like I say, if we can't get a coordinator, I don't know how you really run a program like this an hour and a half a week or a month. But
At the last meeting I attended, there was a motion, I think, made, and the commission said something, like they want to do something. And has that been brought? Do we know about what that was? Has anybody told Steve Bender what they were gonna be? I think the chair made a motion to disband. didn't he?
yes, he did.
Now, did that ever get back to this board at all?
It did not be, so it just happened and it was not, the item that we were supposed to discuss on the agenda was just the future of the Diversity Affairs Commission. The biggest issue is that, how do I say this? The intent. Who is the commission for? Is it for the public or for county employees?
I think it's for both eventually.
Eventually, sure, which is totally fine. So part of the issue is that one of our group members, Catherine Noel, areas, thank you. Her and Mandy, she and Mandy Dornfield had planned speakers. However, the speakers they had planned were supposed to talk about their personal experiences. So our speaker in the month of, what are we in, August, canceled because the speaker was going to speak about her child's abuse. And they were going to talk about the personal story of the child and show pictures of the child. No one on the commission knew. The issue is that we can't host meetings as a county, like they're going to be open door public meetings, while telling speakers that we're going to keep their information safe. Aside from the county's work rules, Wisconsin state has a statute. I did look it up. It's 968.31. It gives single party notice to legally record and divulge the contents of meetings, as long as you're not interrupting the meeting. So I tell my kids all the time, if you post it on the internet, it's out there. You can't take it back, it's gone. So the idea that we're going to have a public meeting on Zoom, and even if I don't hit a record button, that no one else on the Zoom is going to record it, video record it, screenshot it, that's absurd. We can't guarantee privacy. There is no privacy, especially as public officials. We all know this, right? So that's the big thing holding us back right now. During the last meeting, Kay had suggested bringing in the organization Damascus Road. They help sex traffic victims escape from that life. And basically that was not good enough. Kay's suggestion was not good enough because we're not hearing directly from the traumatized victim. We're hearing from a corporation. Technically, is it right to bring in a victim and have them relive their trauma? Probably not. Probably not on a public forum either. So this is the crossroads. So I don't think any of us walked into that meeting saying like, we need to end this. But that's where the discussion ended. It's just not working because we have open record laws and those are set up to keep the public safe, to keep us accountable for what we're doing. That's why it's not going to work moving forward. If we want to be open and transparent and help people, we have to do it openly. We can't do it behind closed doors, which I had referenced earlier with the open meeting law violations.
And you actually do have like $2,500, so you could pay a speaker
Yeah,
and they would agree to be recorded.
sure.
So, you know, that your commissioner committee can do that. You have $2,500 in this year's budget to hire a speaker. So it's like, you don't have to take them. If you can't get somebody that will agree to be recorded for free, you can reach out to somebody that maybe charges a fee to be recorded. But at least you can still, and you don't have to do one a month. You could do one every 2 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you don't have to put so much pressure on the commission to find these speakers. You basically have a little bit of a window, but I just hate to see it disband. And I really would love to see the commission come forward with that coordinator, because I think it's necessary. If this is going to go anywhere in this county, we have to have somebody that can devote at least 20 hours a week to that job, you know, or we're just basically putting a feather in our hat saying, yeah, we got a diversity committee, but we're not going to do anything, you know, because you can't accomplish much in an hour and a half a month, you know. I mean,
No, not on my
that's
own.
like,
So what are we trying to do here today?
That's a good question. We've had this discussion and I came up with a kind of an outline of what I wanted to bring to this meeting. The first thing that, and so everybody understands that I am really vocal. If I start to go tangential, stop me, please. Okay, but I do have a little bit of an organization here. What I wanted to do was go back historically, because I am not convinced that we all understand how this started, why it started, and how it went to the county board. So first off, I have got Resolution 107/12/2020. And here is the resolution. It came from the Extension Department to accept the bylaws.
It came from the committee. not
From the,
department.
thank you. And please, Chris, bring me back to that,
Okay.
because I want to get back to that. So this was done by the committee and it came through in what, I guess, December of 2020. It then went back, it came back to the commission because the bylaws weren't adequate. And so then we had the next resolution, which was 268 of January 2022. And that came back. It finally got resolved through the county board at a regular session, special session in March. And that is when the board finally approved the bylaws and the intent, the purpose of what they were supposed to do over the course of that period, over the course of 2022. In the bylaws and in that, and I've got all of this stuff here, y'all. In the strategic plan, it said that you had to have 6 educational meetings annually. And I will tell you that that has happened. What happened when the new board, and this went through prior to the new board. The new board was elected, but it had not come on board because we didn't start the new board until May. All right, so I come in here and I'm oblivious. And John looks at me and says, "Hey, Kay, you want to be on the Diversity Affairs Commission?" And I go, "Huh? Sure, that'll work for me." And I had no clue what I was getting myself into. What happened in May of 2022 is the new resolution came in stating that all county board, committee, commission, and board meetings in buildings shall be held in a hybrid mode, in person, live streamed, or digitally broadcasted and recorded. Which then takes me to what Rachel referenced, this meeting. Now, one of the things that really confused me and may have confused you, Mike, is that this meeting was the same day as our commission meeting. This one was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At the meeting in July, or maybe in June, I went to Marianne and I said, "Marianne, tell me, does everything have to be?" Did not hear back from her until half an hour prior to this meeting. And so she calls me up and she says, "Kay, you're absolutely right. Everything has got to be recorded. I need to get in touch with the extension to find out how I get this resolved." And so she called up Amy. Amy gave her Mandy's information, and Mandy was approached and she said, "I've got to cancel this educational meeting." We're talking about 15 minutes prior to this going live, it was canceled. That gets us to Mandy's letter, and she was working for the extension. Mandy's letter that came to us after our meeting on August the 4th. I got a letter, and I think everybody did because she sent it out to any number of us, came out and she was saying, "Since I'm not going to see you again in person, I want to let you know what transpired today with a little history. Bear with me, I'll try to be concise. As I shared at the Extension Committee meeting, I have been working very hard to reach a mutually agreeable recording option. I have not gotten any responses to my multiple offers to figure out a plan other than Kay thanking me for my work. Much appreciated. We had a learning session today. At 2:21, Marianne Miller called me and reversed her previous direction that we did not need to record the meeting. I had not booked the unpaid speaker with that understanding. I immediately called her, expressed my embarrassment and regret for putting her in this place. Ultimately, due to having a parent speaker with her child's story and photos is a major part of this conversation, they declined. I fully support this decision. I've been trying so hard to avoid this exact set of circumstances. And as we know, back in July, Mandy brought this up in front of us and said, you know, if this is so dysfunctional, I would like to see this commission disbanded. It has come to my attention that the plan of some of the commission members is to recommend the dissolution of this committee. I met with John about this information, and based upon all the things I've shared, I completely agree with the recommendation. I ask if we could mutually agree and end this with respect and transparency. That is still my goal. The work will not be successful in this framework, despite a lot of work by a lot of folks. My hope is if this comes up as rumored, you are all in the know and can speak and respond confidently. I never wanted you to be blindsided. So there is what Mandy said. And yes, she is no longer working for Extension, but I think that the fact that she was intimately involved with this group from the outset, that her note should be honored and respected, regardless of her not being or working for the Extension any longer. All right, so there's that. There's a little bit of the history of where we've been. All right, the next thing is this strategic plan. Ooh, look at it. Mike, I got this. The strategic plan has essentially been completed for this year as far as us having met, or not us having met, the educational portion having been met, and that was 6 times a year. That has been accomplished. What has not been accomplished and what is totally dysfunctional is the DAC commission. And I would say that there is, Catherine has been on it since the outset. Jared has been on it since last December. The rest of us are brand spanking new. And talk about blindsided. Yeah, sure, I'll happily do it. Slam. I didn't want to be a part of that. Anyway, 2 things as far as August the 4th. We need to identify whether it's educational or whether it is the commission meeting, because that was to me very confusing. And Chris, this brings me back to your point. We have got the extension support that you guys provide for the county board and your independence from the county board. I have, over the last 3 months, learned that this commission is not just about LGBTQIA plus LMNOP. I've discovered that it is related, and not only to faith, not only to diversity, it is relating to so many things out there that I was unaware of. grandparents taking care of their grandchildren because their children are incarcerated. I mean, hey, who knew? 4-H, that you guys live under a set of guidelines and that you are reaching out to people who are quite diverse. To me, diversity means that as a community, we are not touching other people who don't look like me. I would tell you guys, I was educated over in England. None of this stuff ever came up. The people that I played with, I knew nothing about their backgrounds except that it was fun to play with them. And I loved it. Nothing about their backgrounds. I do not know anything about civics in the US. I was there from age 12 until I was 22. So civics completely bypassed me. Regardless of that, we are, I would say, an inclusive community. We have got private entities. We have got 501c3s. We have got churches. We have got synagogues. We have mosques. There is a real range of, we've got 4-H. There are any number of avenues for us to touch others. One of the things that I read, and y'all, we get hard copy of the Wall Street Journal, and I know that this was an important article to me. It says Florida helps, then gets out of the way. And as a committee, I believe we could understand government's role, and it must be limited, accountable, and non-exclusive. This person traveled throughout her state, and she reached out, as Mike was suggesting, saying we held roundtables with our faith-based communities, nonprofits, businesses, state and local government partners. Hope Florida is what evolved from that. And it is a pathway, Hope Florida, a pathway to prosperity. This innovative initiative seeks to maximize collaboration among our public and private sectors to help families. Now, as I see our little commission, I don't see that collaboration. Within Florida's Department of Children and Families, we've turned state employees into Hope navigators. These employees who once processed government payments within the system now help parents identify barriers. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, all right, I go to the county website and I go, where do I go? I go to agendas and meetings on the calendar. And that gives me, now, how do I get to the next step to find out what the bylaws are, what the strategic statement is? How do I get there? We need to involve the community. And in Jared's statement today, he actually suggested some private entities and websites to reach out to. So I think, Mike, you're absolutely correct. We need to do some collaboration. We need to not be dysfunctional. We went over at our meeting everything that y'all had done, everything that you had done, and did not come up with an answer. Am I right here, Tom?
May I give you a chance to breathe?
I ask you to please speak.
Yeah, what I just heard you say is that there was a plan, and then the plan changed when we started recording. So now what really has to happen is the committee has to come back together and say, our plan has changed now. How can we survive? And what I heard Steve saying is you do have money, you can hire speakers now if that's the case. So now but it does change where you're going because you were getting everything for nothing before and now you have to pay for it or get other things. So the committee really, this business about recording it becomes an excuse to disband, not a reason. You can work around it if you so choose to, and so you have the leadership to do so. But you're right, everything you've given here is excellent background on it, but now it's just a matter of
Where do we go from here?
separating it out, and so now we have to go ahead, but we can't record, so now we have to get people know, but you're done for this year, you're got it working for next year, and that means the budget's coming up, so if you need more money, you know why you need more money now. If you have to record, it costs you money, so, recording does cost more money. So you have to take and just get together, but that's the committee, I think, isn't it, Chris, doing that, making that decision?
Is it the committee or the commission?
The commission.
So
And
this would be my interpretation, is that the commission may not have, the commission would request for the committee because the committee is the body that is part of a subset of the Board of Supervisors. So, and the commission falls under the purview of the committee. So commission could make a request to committee members to make a budget allocation. But that's just an interpretation. I'm not corporation counsel. I'm not going to pretend to give the final answer.
I just wanted to clarify, Article 5 of the bylaws that state that the speakers and educational opportunities need to be decided by the steering committee. The people that sit on the Diversity Affairs Commission. Correct.
You have $2,500, so it's not like you're gonna get a lot of speakers. But if you only plan one speaker in October or November, and you use some of that money to print up some brochures for your, going forward.
And now you can go to the board supervisors and say, okay, you made this rule, it costs us more money now because we have to do this and we've lost our source of speakers, so we need more money.
which takes us back to dissolving and react. And when I say reacting, starting over again. Because things have changed so drastically from when those bylaws were set up. And Chris, the other thing I wanted to ask you is, you said that we have two entities. We've got the extension supporting the county board, and we've got you guys as your own entity, correct? So again, going back to bylaws saying that the educational portion of the DAC would be reverted to the UW Education Extension and Agriculture Committee, or we go back to the personnel, or we go back to the health department and let them be the creators of that. Because I know that Mike and I were at that health board meeting, and it didn't have to be recorded because it was the health board that presented it. It was not the county board. Is that correct, Mike?
Well, somewhere along, it was a training that was provided by the health department. It wasn't the health board meeting. It was the training that provided that.
Yeah.
I mean, Ralph got invited to it, anyone could.
It was an educational kind of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, right, yeah.
I believe if you don't want to get a diversity coordinator, this isn't going to go nowhere, because you have to have somebody to, like, just to create, let's say we dissolve this commission.
Yeah.
The first thing you have to do is go to a committee to get that committee to move to start a new commission. And that will take probably a year. And then after you get your committee formed, then you have to form the bylaws. And that'll take you another year.
I
So in 2
understand.
years, all you have to do right now is change the bylaws. You change the bylaws, bring them back to this committee, and we can take it to the county board. In 2 months, we can change the bylaws. You know, you have to decide what it is in the bylaws you don't like that you want to change. And if we could get the coordinator, I would move this whole thing to personnel. That's where it belongs.
Sorry, I don't want to be rude because I know this is your meeting. But that was part of the thing I had asked during the meeting, was that essentially the diversity affairs bylaws are what is holding us back. And just kind of asking, basically, can we throw them out entirely and just assume under the regular laws of the county board, like every other committee and commission does? That would tie up a lot, that would open up a lot more doors.
I don't think we can do that.
What was
So
interesting
that
is,
would be a Mary Ann Miller question, because the enabling resolution that was passed by the county board in December of 2020 specifically says that the commission needs to have bylaws and a strategic plan. So that's what it specifically says. The original versions that Supervisor Norton, when we started the conversation with this committee, did include specific liaisons. Those were taken out of the resolution, and those were then put in place with the in the bylaws that were written. And at this point, I would also, I mean, I do see some amendments because from the department standpoint, with our current staffing or potential changes in staffing, we cannot fulfill the extension liaison at this point in time. The role, I can't guarantee it. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying I can't guarantee that. So I just point that out.
You know, Beth Roberts should still participate to help you.
and she's at the health department?
No.
Well,
Youth service.
but she should still be there to help you facilitate the meeting. But you can change those bylaws and strategic plan any way you want to change it. Just rewrite them, bring them to this committee, and we can basically move them forward. You know, but I agree with you. If we can't, in my opinion, if we can't get a coordinator, I throw the towel in, because there's no way that the commission at an hour and a half a month is going to accomplish anything. It's a waste of time. I worked on that committee for over 2 years, and it took that long to form the committee and do the bylaws that nobody likes.
Well, that have changed.
Well, everything changes. You have to rewrite them. You know, it's like when we started, we had no bylaws. And we worked on that month after month. And then when we thought we had a draft, we bring it to the county board and, oh, this word's wrong, that word's wrong. We like this. So then we go back, and every time I'd ask for the county board, come help us so we can get this passed. And nobody would show up at our, and it was only a Zoom meeting. So it wasn't like they had to get out of their house and drive somewhere that they could have just got their little iPad out and said, well, why don't we try wording it this way? But nobody would. So we would word it to what we thought they wanted. We'd go back and we could vote it down again. You know, but all I'm asking the commission to do is stick with it, try to rewrite your strategic plan. And I would love to see you come ask for this coordinator. I'm gonna ask for one way or the other, but it'd have more bearing if it came from your committee or commission.
And Mandy did say that this would go forward regardless of if there was a commission or not.
It will. We went forward, but you won't get the county, you won't have $2,500 for the speakers because they're not gonna give it to you.
No funding.
No, I understand that, but I would.
So I will just clarify the educational nature, outreach, education of extension work is going to continue. That's what we do, regardless of the commission. So, I mean, I do know that statement. That's something that Mandy and I, as part of our exit, have had conversations.
So just a question, since this is a rather newer area for me. If the board approved the $2,500 specifically for a purpose, for brochures, the only reason why is I was there, so I remember that specific conversation. Can those funds, once they have been approved, can that be reappropriated in any manner
It could be a bunch of transfer, but I thought I said brochures and speakers.
But yeah, I'd have to look. I thought it was, I remember looking at the brochures, that's why.
You know,
I didn't know if that was,
I think it was both, let me check, because I don't
I
think we
see.
spent maybe about $500-600 on the brochures. We
Oh.
never spent 2,500.
oh, okay.
So I think it was both, but otherwise you'd have to do it through a budget transfer.
Right, that's what I was thinking that would be, since it was for a specific reason.
Yeah, but I think if we go back and look,
It was,
because it wouldn't have been that much, it would have been $500-600
I
for
see.
those years. And we were asking for 2,500, but
Okay.
today we haven't spent. the dollar.
and the only other thing is, you know, you had asked for feedback way back when. I did give feedback and no one actually responded back to me. So just so we know, like, there were
Yeah.
people out there like, hey, you know, you may want to do this and that on the planning itself, since I have history doing strategic planning, as well as on some of the key focal areas within the mission itself. And I didn't get any response. And I said like 3 or 4 times, not to you though. It wasn't to you.
I
So
didn't
no,
get
it
any.
wasn't to you. It was to others on the commission as well as on this committee at the time, I believe. And I got no response. So I
Oh,
tried.
okay.
So my point is I tried.
Yeah, you try, well, I thought I got them, I would have at least followed up with you and.
I know you would have. Yeah,
No,
I know
I
you
mean-
would have. But and alas, I wish I would have sent it to you. but-
And I
Just,
would also say, excuse me, guys, I would also say that I have not seen any minutes, and help me out here, Rachel, since our meeting on August the 4th. And I did not understand that with our meeting being recorded, that we could then give it to the clerk's office to do the minutes.
That's what I was told, because basically our secretary was Jody, and she was only supposed to record our minutes till May. So then I asked Supervisor Windred, what do we do? He goes, if you have nobody to record or to take your minutes, send the recording over to the clerk's office and she'll have to take your minutes. So that's what I was told, but then I was off the committee in April, and that was the end of that.
I'm gonna do a 360, or actually a 180. I'm not gonna talk about what you guys have been talking about. The commission is in its infancy. It's been a rocky road from what I hear. There's been some potholes, a few squabbles, I think. One thing that I would, but we shouldn't dissolve this group because I think it can do a lot of good. One area I would really like to see the commission work on is diversify. We really need a much better diversification of candidates to run for political office in our county, whether it's Village of Winnebago, County Board, Common Council in Oshkosh. There's all mainstream people on it, and that's not bad, but I would like to see the commission maybe recruit folks that aren't mainstream or encourage them somehow to run for office, because the public would see that, and I think they would know that, hey, there's other folks out there who have opinions and can contribute, but I think we have to do some recruiting to get folks on there. I think that would really do a lot for diversifying our attitudes in this county, because I think we're too mainstream sometimes, I think. Not that that's totally bad, but I don't know if some of you remember Al Brolier. I think he died about 35 years ago. Al was an icon in the city of Oshkosh. He had some physical problems, but he could still get around. He rode his 3-wheel bike and his scooter around town, and he knew a lot of people. And I know a few people had encouraged him to run for city council, but he never did. And he would have been a good one because he was still pretty sharp up here. And how Al died was just like that 77-year-old man in Milwaukee. Al was trying to beat the, the opening of the bridge. And he had his bicycle, and I think he thought he could beat it and, jump over it a little bit, but he didn't make it. So I think he might have died of a concussion or when he fell, yeah. Because there's a memorial park for him at 6th and Main, Albrelier. And I mean, Al would have done, even not being on the council or whatever, he did more, I think, for folks that weren't mainstream than anyone else did in the city. And how do you do it? I don't exactly know, but you put your minds together. Because I think if we can show that there's more diversification, people are going to understand it a little better, or at least be aware of it. I'm not saying the people that we have in now are conquerors at all, but we just need to be more diversified. I think we're too mainstream. So I'd like the commission to tackle that somewhere along the line. That's just my opinion, but so I would not like to see the commission dissolved at all. Not at all, because I think there's potential there. It's in its infancy. There's a lot of bumps in the road, but I think those can be overcome. I like the idea of the part-time coordinator too. That could be, that could go a long ways in melding things together. So thank you very much.
I think, Chris, if we could leave that on there again for next month, discuss it again, but if nobody else has anything else, maybe we should move on for today.
Well, just one more thing. Mike did mention that on the 25th, there is a DEI, Wisconsin County Association meeting at the Paper Valley Hotel from 3 until 5. So there is that. And you've signed up for it? I've signed up for it. I was wondering if I was going to need to go to it.
I would have liked to sign up for one of my last meetings ago. I go on Thursdays. That's why I don't attend your meetings either. I always had Mondays or Wednesdays.
And my other statement is that we are meeting again. The DAC gang is meeting again on September the 8th at 5:30. And on these minutes, it said we started the meeting at 5. We started it at 5:30. So
And I just wanted to throw out there quickly, I had mentioned this in the group. I was serving before as a co-leader for a local group called Tuesdays Together. And they're a subchapter of a US-based and international-based larger organization called the Rising Tide Society, has over 76,000 members. My job was to locally find and book speakers to come in, no money, for over an entire year. And I did that successfully. We brought in all different types of speakers through this program. I worked for free doing it. The speakers came for free. The best thing was that I was able to find speakers who were able to benefit from it. So for example, if we brought in a life coach, they were able to pitch their business to the people listening. If we brought in someone who specialized in anything, entrepreneurship, at the end of the meeting, they were able to pitch the book that they wrote so people could buy it. That was kind of how our speakers were compensated. It was a great system. They have chapters all over the United States, internationally. Again, 76,000 people are making this work. We could do it. It could happen. But again, it's the direction. Is this for the public? The strategic plan says it's for the public, or is it for county employees? I know we've discussed eventually wanted to be both. I don't know if that's feasible at this time, but just leaving that out there.
Yeah.
If I leave, do we need to call?
No.
I have to leave at 11:30.
Mr. Chair, if I could just say something, I wasn't actually planning to talk about this because I wanted to talk more about the scholarship. But I will make one comment. And it was part of the comments I made back in March. And that is, I don't know if any of you actually live in a multicultural household, but I do. And as those resolutions were coming forward, I actually had a lot of conversation with my family and with those that I love and trust. And, you know, we have stores in Milwaukee, you know, very, very diverse areas. And one of the things that was omitted was equality. And in place, it was equity. And I gotta tell you that no matter what happens going forward, I implore you to reconsider equality. You know, there's nothing worse in being in a community where you are isolated in so many different ways. You know, when you're at a grocery store and someone comes up to you and says, "What a cute little Asian baby you have there." What do you say to them? Right? What do you say? Now, you know that,
Thanks.
you know that it's not coming from a bad place, but it's a reminder that you're different. Correct. Right? Inequality speaks to the fact that we celebrate those differences. We celebrate. That's the idea of equality, that we come from different backgrounds, from different experiences, from different races, from different cultures. And that's wonderful. Like we need to embrace that. But what people don't understand is that when you bring in the word equity, it's not the same thing. It is not the same thing. Equity is about saying you're different, you're different, you're different. So we're going to treat you all differently because we want to get to the same end point. That's different. Equity is about saying to my family that we're racists, that we're taking advantage of a minority. And I know I'm telling you, you don't live in a multicultural family. You don't know, I'm sorry, you don't know. You don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like. You can sit there and say, I know, but you don't. It hits you to the core. I know people talk about when you have a child, your life changes. Boy, they're right. But until you experience that, you don't really know. And this is the same way. Until you experience what it's like, you don't really know. You can talk about it, and you can say, hey, but you don't really know. And so we have had a lot of conversations about this. And I gotta say, I was very disappointed when there was no mention of the word equality in any of this. It's like it's nowhere, which is surprising to me. It really is. And so I would hope that at some point we can step back and consider that as a consideration. And be it in a very respectful way. You know, we wouldn't be where we're at today if we didn't have all of the diverse opinions and backgrounds of people. We need to celebrate that more versus pointing at each other. All this divisiveness, it's like it's getting worse. And I think we need to find ways to kind of help and love and support each other. Why can't we? Why can't we? Seriously, why can't we? Why can't we love each other? But we use these words to separate each other. And it's just, oh man, it is just so hard. So at any rate, my whole point is that I hope that we can reevaluate, as no matter what happens, that we can reevaluate and bring that perspective into the fold. So that was just my little 3 cents. So
I understand. I mean, I'm only a second generation, but they were German, so I fit in because I'm white, you know? So no one looks at me and thinks, well, you know, you don't belong here. Because they see the color of my skin and they don't know if I've been here my whole life or I've been here, you know? But yet when you are a person of color, when something goes wrong, one of the persons on our county board had a colored son. And when they told him to go back where he came from, he was our county board chairman. You know, so, I mean, don't think for a minute there isn't problems in this county. One more question, and we better move on.
I think that a bunch of it goes unseen, but what I'm hearing you say, Brian, is that equality is a positive statement and equity is a negative statement. It is making us diverse as opposed to bringing us together.
Well, my bigger point is they're different. And we need to understand what each of those are and what it means and to what end we're trying to accomplish something. Because they're not the same. That was my whole point, is that I think people confuse equity and equality. We have to understand that they're two different things. We could debate what is best for bringing people together and all that. We could debate that, but we ought not confuse the two because they are different. And we have to also keep in mind that when we make these conversations about making things more diverse, and that's we need to do that. We absolutely need to do that. But we also need to make sure that these decisions have people who actually have to live by the consequences of that in mind. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it is what it is. This community, by the way, is about 98% Caucasian, right?
No,
I
it's not, it's only about 90% these days.
Right. But my point is that people, there are people who are making decisions who may not understand what the consequences of their actions are. And that's all I'm saying, is that maybe you should engage with people who actually live this and not just pick and choose people either. Get a variety of perspectives, variety of points of view, and try to actually engage these versus going to, a group here. It's almost like you're checking a box, here, well, we talked to this group, this group, this group. That's great. Those are advocacy groups. They don't speak for everyone within that. I'll tell you that, I've engaged in a lot of different cultural areas in terms of what we are integrated with. And there's differing opinions. I think it's hilarious in a very sad way that when someone says, well, the Asians, well, do you know how diverse that culture is? Number one, it's huge, just so y'all know. I mean, it spans, pretty much, it dwarfs us being America, even as a continent. And so these oversimplifications of what one group thinks and how one group acts also is a little offensive to me. I'll give you a really quick story, and this is the truth. So my son, he goes to school, he's a high school student, and they have a lot of foreign exchange people. And he was brand new, I think he was a freshman. And he was in this group, and this instructor, very nice woman, but this instructor goes to my son, do you speak English? And he's, okay, so he's a teenage boy, and he handled it very well. I would have been like playing around with her, he's like, no, I did that. But he was quite offended. Of course, he's like, yes, I do speak English, right? And the point there, and what he would probably say is the point is, don't make me feel isolated. Sometimes when we do these things, like especially with equity, we actually make people feel more isolated. There are some groups who will celebrate it, but then there are other groups within that diverse area who feel differently. And sometimes they don't get a voice in it. And so that is what I'm saying, is that we have to understand that those are two different things. We have to understand that whatever decisions we make actually impacts people in real ways that you may feel good about it. It makes you feel good, and you may have listened to a speaker or talked to some group over here and there, and you can go home and feel good about it, but these decisions really do impact people. And I just hope that if you want to make this community more diverse, then you have to start expecting people of all, we'll say, cultural backgrounds, and not just assume that they believe a certain thing because they're a certain color or race or whatnot, and get to know the person and realize that, you know, we're all kind of the same, really. You know, we all have the same concerns. And I just think sometimes we get lost in the weeds in that. So that was my only point with that, is that
And I think it's really admirable that you brought that up, and I appreciate.
like I said, I wasn't planning to talk, I really want to talk about scholarship stuff, but I am fearful that we're going down in this area, and I don't want people to feel more isolated, specifically with that. I want people to feel more comfortable. Like,
Well, my example is we all sit on the toilet the same way and we all stink.
it's true. Okay.
I'm as good as the Queen of England.
Yeah,
Maybe not as rich.
that's true. That's true.
Now, moving on, next one goes to the scholarship task force.
Thank you, everyone. I'm
Oh,
so
bye.
sorry.
Thanks
I'm
for
gonna go
coming.
check on my kids. I appreciate you all so much.
Rachel, thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, I want to say I appreciate everybody who has spoken about this, all of the input that has happened with it. It's huge, and I am finding support. Who knew the amount of support and love there is in this gang? And I thank you all for it.
We all try to work together. Karen, that's kind of her,
Is she not here?
but you wanted to speak on it?
I did. So this actually came to JPS, and I'm the chair of JPS. And we had a discussion, and we decided that we should refer it to this committee. And that's kind of why I wanted to be here for that, is to say, so we had a discussion, and one of the items that came out of that discussion, and I wasn't aware of this, that this scholarship program has around $40,000, $43,000 sitting in an account. And that was news to me. And one of the questions I asked Supervisor Powers is, why aren't we doing more of that? And she's like, well, that's a really good question. Like, okay. And we all like stared at each other, like, how do we bring this forward? So that's why I'm here, is, you're talking about education. So I came from a very poor farming, as a member of 4-H and FFA, Central Wisconsin. I don't know if you- and I was the first of my family, and I'm the youngest of 8, who went to school, right? So then it became a problem because I have a master's degree, and then I have all these other post graduate degrees, and it's just crazy. And then I started going for my doctorate in business. I'm like, why am I doing this? So anyway, but I've seen the impact that education can have. And it's not getting cheaper for kids. It's just, I know of like 4 or 5 families who are going in this year. And some of them are going to the extension because it's a heck of a lot cheaper to get your generals done at the extension and then transferred to another school, which is fantastic. I don't know why we don't talk about that more. I don't know if you want to talk more about that, but I think it's a good selling point. Anyway, I think that we need to figure out a way to give more of those funds out to students. So I don't know if during budget, because we had that conversation, right? And if I would have known at the time that we had this fund here, I would have said, well, okay, well, why don't we just do $2,000, but do it for 10 kids? Because I think basically it was the same amount of money. We reduced the amount that we were giving, we increased the amount we were giving, but reduced the pool in which we were giving. So I would like to ask this committee, I don't know if it's this committee or if it's someone else, to reconsider maybe doing more since we have this fund available. and really figured out a way to also communicate it a little better. You know, I sub at a couple high schools in the Appleton area. And but again, I understand that Appleton's out of gamey, but there are a lot of Winnebago people who go there. No one knew about this. You know, I asked some of, you know, I'm from Neenah, so I asked all my Neenah friends. They had no idea that this was an option. We had a friend, family of a friend who was actually going to a school in Milwaukee. And she ended up getting, she had no idea about this, and I didn't tell them. It's not me. But she ended up getting like a scholarship from Burger King. And she doesn't even eat there. I don't even know how that happened. But for me, education's a passion for me. And I've seen real positives come out of it. So all I'm asking is if there's a way that we could increase the amount and increase the amount of people we give this to, and just like let the board know that we have this money.
And Carol,
Do we have that much?
Yeah, crazy. I think Mr. Norton wants to say something, or he's dancing.
I have a couple of things, or quickly. Have we decided who's just takes control of this? I mean, I came in here, come back in a couple of years ago, and then I was told it's the county clerk's office. We don't know who's under control. Reason I'm saying, I hope Chris remembers, I came here a couple of years ago. See, I wanted to possibly, the only thing I do different is expand the eligibility. What I mean that, and explain that, is to have one scholarship, at least one scholarship, be available for non-traditional students. For that student who's not a high school student, who maybe is non-traditional, meaning they're not a high school student. And you can set up whether only one per lifetime or whatever, but that's one thing I'd like to consider. I know that was before the COVID, and then COVID hit, and so I would like to have that considered the next couple of months, because if I'm understanding right, the next couple of months is when you start to finalize and you get the forms out for the scholarship program. So that's my only concern about this, okay? Thank you.
that's something we'll probably have to put back on the agenda for next month, because Karen was having a task force, and she's not here to tell us what she accomplished.
I did approach Karen at the county board meeting because I said that I would help her with this. And she said, Kay, I've had laryngitis for the last 5 days. I can't talk. And so I'm planning on getting in touch with you. And I know you can't speak up, but that is why she and I have not gotten together. I've got a couple of questions. I agree with you, Mike, a non-traditional 30-year-old single parent. I think that would be absolutely fabulous for that person to have it. One of the ways I know that scholarships are made aware of at the high school level is their counselors. And their counselors, as far as I'm concerned, do a poor job. My next question is, does this $43,000 go each year into the pot, or does it get depleted? So how do we go about replenishing it?
I believe, right, is it 10,000 every year goes in from the budget, and then you can donate to it. So there is some level of increased funding every year, or in source.
500 when they get the other 500 if they get a certain grade point average. So some of them probably don't succeed and get the grade point
Oh,
average.
is that it? Oh, I didn't realize that.
That's been the process for several years.
Okay, so there might be a little bit of that too, yeah. I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, they don't get the whole 1,000 right up front. They have to come back and show you. So that's how some of that.
Right.
But there were like only 6 students this year who received it, weren't there? I mean,
No, all 9 did.
oh, there were 9? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and they had 30, was it 30 some entries, 30 or 40 some entries. So we had a good amount, but we could have given more out, my point. You know, we had the funds available, And maybe we don't, maybe we don't want to like deplete all of it at one time, but maybe we could add a few more since we are just literally sitting on these funds.
Are there essays still being evaluated at UW Fox, you know? Okay.
Do we consider students that are homeschooled?
Yes.
To get
Yeah, in the
these?
past, yes.
Not so, what's the criteria for them? How do we know what their grades are?
They submit, I mean, in the past, they submitted their transcripts along with their applications.
You have to be tested for homeschool, from what I understand. So they probably have to submit their test scores.
That I didn't know. Okay.
And one of the things I'll add, I'm recalling the conversation from the last meeting that Karen, and this might be where you and her were going to connect, was looking at, is there a possibility to work with it? Is it possible to take the 43,000 and create an, with like the community foundation, create an endowed scholarship so that there is sustainability. And that also follows up, okay, I fully recognize the community foundations right now in many of our communities are the go-tos for scholarship applications because they're like the hub. So many of the counselors are saying 90% of the scholarships are there, so that's where they're directing them. So that's where a connection to the community foundation is probably a good thing regardless to make, because they might be able to help promote, even just promote the scholarship. as
And
well.
not only that, they can actually go about doing with the criteria set up, they can go about doing the following up with the applications and then saying, these are the students, if you want to interview them, come and interview them and find out what their passion is, what their direction is, that kind of thing. Community foundations don't do this for nothing. They have employees and they've got to pay them. And I will tell you that it's about 5%. So if we were to put $43,000 into it, it would not fare well for us because all of this scholarship money would be spent paying them. So we've got to somehow or the other bring this $43,000 up to a significant amount of money. I know that for the King's Daughters, we were giving away one scholarship to 2 or 3 schools of $1,000 annually. And that was so the student knew that they had that income coming, but it also kept our cost basis where it was. So if it was a $200,000 that we put into it, it remains $200,000. And I would suggest that we need to get this. And when it went below that 200,000, there were no scholarships given. It was so that we could get that cost basis back up to that 200,000 and get the interest on that money. So there's how I've got information there. But yes, Karen and I are planning on getting together.
We'll hear more on that next month then.
And from what I understand, in the budget process, I believe it's Chairman Egan who ultimately decides how many scholarships and what the scholarship amount is per scholarship. I was told that today by John Damo. He said that. 'Cause I came from a budget meeting.
When he presents his budget probably to John.
Right,
Because
so.
last year, John, they changed it. They wanted to do $2,000 for 5.
Right, versus 1,000 for 10.
Yeah. And it got changed. So that must just be
But I don't know if this committee can influence a recommendation for that, or, because I can go to Chairman Egan and say, hey, please consider.
And my long history is, and I'm not gonna be just with you, Brian, not just with the county executive, but it's how much the county executive puts in the budget every year. If he would put in, I think one year, the county executive, the former county executive wanted to put in less than 9,000 where we put in. That was given the indication that you could have less. I don't know who determined how many to tell you the truth. It's always been 9. And it's changed from one every school to general 9. So I don't know.
And to support what Supervisor Norton is saying, and right now, there is not, so I look at Sarah because Sarah probably has the most institutional memory from that. And there's not an enabling resolution that spells out the beginning, or if it does, it's so old that nobody can locate it. So we're going on written and oral history from individuals that have been involved.
So would it be I'm just asking, would it be beneficial for this committee to have a resolution to bring forward to say, and maybe it's out of that task group or task force? Because I feel like that would be very useful for nothing else, for looking forward, because I would actually prefer not to get the conversation we had last year when this came up in budget, because it was very circular. And it surely would be nice to have some sort of baseline or basis to say, okay, this is what it is, this is how it's decided. And I think that would be extremely helpful.
And a lot of that, so the enabling piece, I mean, Sarah and the groups that she has worked with in the past, they have all of that. And Sarah even compiled that for.
I coordinated the program for
Yeah.
probably 6 or 7 years
Yeah.
here in the office before it went back to the county clerk's office. So I have a lot of that information. In fact, I was just looking at the website, and the brochure that they have on your county website is one that I created a few years ago, and they've just updated the dates. But I do have I've got a lot of historical.
It sounds like you really need to get connected with Supervisor Powers and Haran
And I know one year the results from UW Fox came back, and I asked the chair at the time of the board if we could do 10, or I think it was 9 instead of 8, or if it was 10 instead of 9, and he approved it. So I just asked. There was nothing official, because there was a tie with the results from UW Fox, and we were like, what do we do? So there's been a lot of history, but I've got more information like on my computer I can share with Karen Powers and things.
and just so you know, I will, whatever that is, I'm gonna heart and hand support whatever that is, because I think this is a fantastic thing that we're doing. We need to do more of it.
And I like the idea of a non-traditional student or someone who's in grad school or something, break them up a little bit too, just a night.
Or like you said, like a working mom
Mhm.
who's trying to, we belong to a group called Safe Families, and right now we're helping a family. She's a single mother with 2 kids, and she's trying to get her nursing degree. And it's so hard for her. So like we actually go and kind of like give them things and help them out, make sure she can get her to, get to her labs and all that. Helping that kind of person, I think would be fantastic, because they're a working adult, they're trying to make things better for them and their family. And boy, I mean, to me, that seems like something that government can really help with, in that instance.
Right.
So,
And even if we doubled it from 9,000 to 18,000 and gave $2,000 scholarships, it would be.
we would have,
thousands worth.
right, absolutely. I would give to it. I would give to that, because it's that important.
Yeah, I mean, that's our future.
Yeah.
Kids that we educate today are gonna be the next leaders of this community tomorrow,
Absolutely.
So if we don't educate them, we can't expect much in return,
Mhm.
So we'll keep that on the agenda for next month, so hopefully Karen and Kay will get together and we'll be able to make some progress with that. Next, we got committee members' comments.
Hey, I just thank all of you for helping me, for in the future making sure that I stick to task and don't get tangential, and for loving me in spite of myself.
Hey, you're not the only one who does that. Don't worry. Other people do that too. You're not the only one who gets off and can't. I'm just saying.
Mike, I've got a light at my house that is glass, and it's a chandelier, and it does this. And my son looks at it and says, "Mom, that's your brain."
No comment. Committee members. Next, we'll go to the next meeting will be September 15th. Now to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
You're so Brian, you're just to read over.
Yeah, actually, I was reading this over. It's just
You have that one.
fantastic. Oh, thank you. I think I agree with, what Supervisor Borch was saying when you came, when was that?
That was in May.
May, was it May?
I wanna say it was
I
May.
think that's the
I
kind of
think it
stuff
was.
that we
I
should
think
be
it was May.
doing, like,
Yeah.
just, here, this is what it is. I know that there are people around me that said, oh, I had no idea. You know, we have family friends who went through the Winnebago 4-H, so, and they had the projects, and so I knew, but there are a lot of people who didn't. I actually didn't know that there